Sekali lagi selamat datang dan terima kasih, dan kita akan meneruskan agenda utama kita pada hari ini, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, dengan sama-sama kita akan mendengarkan keynote speech daripada Secretary General Ministry of Works Malaysia. Dan sebelum itu suka untuk saya berkongsi kepada tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sedikit latar belakang Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Kerja Raya, iaitu Datuk Seri Azman bin Ibrahim. Datuk Seri Azman bin Ibrahim is highly experienced civil servant with over 30 years in public service. His career in the Malaysian civil administration began in 1994 when he was appointed to the Ministry of Finance as an administrative and diplomatic officer. Since then, he has held various leadership roles across multiple government ministries and agencies. Over the course of his career, he has gained extensive expertise in social infrastructure management, economic governance, and financial administration. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Datuk Seri Azman bin Ibrahim, Secretary General Ministry of Works Malaysia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani. Terima kasih kepada pengacara majlis. Yang berbahagia Datuk IR Sazali Harun, Ketua Pengarah Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Datuk Sri Idris Jala, Presiden Pemandu Associate Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Datuk Zakaria bin Ahmad Zabidi, Presiden Persatuan Syarikat-Syarikat Konsesi Lebuh Raya Malaysia, ahli-ahli lembaga pengarah Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia, para pembantang yang saya hormati, yang bahagia Tan-Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk-Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya kasih sekalian. Terlebih dahulu marilah kita sama-sama memanjatkan kesyukuran kepada Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala kerana dengan limpah dan izinnya kita dapat sama-sama berada dalam Majlis Sempena Highway Concession Conference HCC 2024. Saya juga ingin merakamkan setinggi penghargaan kepada Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia atas penganjuran HCC 2024 yang mengetengahkan pembangunan lebuh raya di Malaysia. Saya juga ingin mengambil kesempatan ini untuk mengucapkan salam kenalan kepada tetamu-tamu jemputan dan peserta persidangan. Untuk makluman semua, saya baru lapor diri pada 5 September yang lalu. Ya, baru lagi. Tetapi untuk makluman, Kementerian Kerja Raya bukan apa baru bagi saya. Sebab pada tahun 2017 hingga 2020, saya pernah bertugas di bahagian dasar dan antarabangsa di Kementerian Kerja Raya. Hari ini saya ingin berkongsi pandangan dan pengalaman berkaitan dengan pembangunan lebuh raya betul di Malaysia. Selaras dengan tema HCC 2024 Highway Revitalization, Balancing Engineering Social Environment Innovatively, kerajaan dalam usaha untuk melestarikan pembangunan lebuh raya betul dengan menekankan kepada keperluan menyeimbangkan aspek kejuruteraan dengan isu sosial dan alam sekitar secara inovatif. Yang bahagia Tan-Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk-Datuk, Datin-Datin, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, pembangunan lebuh raya betul memainkan peranan penting dalam memacu pembangunan negara dengan memperkukuhkan jaringan infrastruktur yang efisien dan menyeluruh. Integrasi lebuh raya betul dengan mod pengangkutan awam dalam pembangunan bandar adalah elemen penting untuk meningkatkan keberkesanan dan kecekapan sistem pengangkutan yang lebih efektif, mampan, cekap dan mesra pengguna. Secara keseluruhannya, pembangunan lebuh raya betul adalah merupakan satu pelaburan strategik untuk meningkatkan taraf ekonomi negara. Saya ingin memetik kata-kata Yang Berhormat Menteri Kerja Raya dalam satu ucapan beliau yang berbunyi, "It is not rocket science that systematic and effective road network will lead to the expansion of economic growth." Saya ingin menarik perhatian para hadirin bahawa industri pembinaan yang merangkumi pembangunan lebuh raya bukan sahaja membantu dalam pembangunan infrastruktur negara dalam usaha meningkatkan mobiliti dan accessibility, malah ianya merupakan pemangkin pertumbuhan ekonomi melalui peningkatan perdagangan dan pelancongan. Merujuk kepada kategori dalam persekutuan, lebuh raya betul merupakan salah satu daripada 7 kategori dalam persekutuan dan melalui Akta 231, Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia telah dipertanggungjawabkan untuk mengawal, menyelaras dan memberi nasihat kepada syarikat-syarikat konsesi dalam urusan pembinaan operasi dan penyelenggaraan lebuh raya bagi pihak kerajaan sekaligus menjadikan badan yang memantau operasi dan pengawasan pelaksanaan lebuh raya betul di seluruh Malaysia. Di mana yang dinyatakan oleh Yang Berhormat Timbalan Menteri sebentar tadi, pada masa ini sebanyak 33 buah lebuh raya betul sedang beroperasi dengan jumlah panjang iaitu 2,128 km. Secara purata, sebanyak 5.2 juta transaksi tol di semua lebuh raya setiap hari. Jaringan lebuh raya betul di Malaysia juga menyediakan 52 kawasan rehat dan rawat serta 250 hentian sebelah disediakan bagi tujuan keselesaan pengguna lebuh raya. Berdasarkan kepada data keluaran dalam negara kasar, nilai kerja sektor pembinaan adalah berjumlah ringgit Malaysia 38.9 bilion dicatatkan pada suku kedua 2024. Pembangunan lebuh raya berjumlah RM 9.2 bilion atau 23.65% merangkumi lebuh raya baharu dan kerja-kerja naik taraf. Pelaksanaan lebuh raya betul di Malaysia ini telah mula dilaksanakan pada tahun 1983 melalui dasar penswastaan negara. Antara objektif penswastaan ini diwujudkan adalah untuk mengurangkan bebanan kewangan kerajaan, pada masa yang sama mengoptimumkan penyediaan perkhidmatan lebuh raya sebagai jalan alternatif di Malaysia. Saya rasa yang ni yang kadang-kadang kita tengok rakyat kita salah faham, sebab kita bina lebuh raya ni sebagai jalan alternatif, bukan jalan utama. Sebab tu masa saya dulu masa di Kementerian Kerja Raya pada 2017 hingga 2020, kita selalu buat roadshow memberikan maklumat ni kepada rakyat bahawa jalan utama ialah Federal Road dan bukan tol. Tol ini merupakan jalan alternatif. KKR yang merupakan Kementerian Peneraju Pembangunan Infrastruktur Negara bersama-sama unit peneraju awam swasta UKAS sehingga kini membangun, mentadbir dan memantau pelaksanaan dasar-dasar ini melalui pelaksanaan perjanjian konsesi atau CA. Menyentuh mengenai cabaran menyediakan infrastruktur lebuh raya yang mapan, KKR melalui pengembangan sumber di bawah 3 agensi utama iaitu JKR, LLM dan CIDB dan juga 3 lembaga profesional LJM, LAM dan LJBM telah melaksanakan pelbagai inisiatif strategik berpaksikan kelestarian, kepakaran tinggi, teknologi terkini. Penekanan terhadap aspek perancangan, reka bentuk, pembinaan, keselamatan, keselesaan, kepuasan pelanggan dan kelestarian alam sekitar bagi memastikan pembangunan infrastruktur menjadi teras utama dalam pembangunan setiap rantai ekosistem pembangunan infrastruktur termasuk pembangunan lebuh raya di Malaysia. Sebagai contoh, KKR melalui Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia telah melaksanakan MOU dan penyelidikan bersama pihak MIROS, UPM, USM, UTM, UITM dan UKM. Kerjasama ini akan menghasilkan pelbagai manfaat dalam bidang penyelidikan dan pembangunan. Dalam bidang kajian keselamatan jalan raya, projek infrastruktur pintar, inovasi teknologi pengangkutan yang akan membawa kepada pembangunan sistem pengangkutan awam yang lebih mesra alam dan meningkatkan kemahiran profesional pekerja dalam industri pembinaan dan pengurusan jalan raya. Secara keseluruhannya, kerjaan ini telah meningkatkan kualiti penyelidikan pembangunan dan penyelidikan dalam bidang-bidang yang berkaitan. Tanpa strategi dan inisiatif oleh syarikat-syarikat konsesi lebuh raya, tidak akan ada lebuh raya betul di Malaysia yang mendapat anugerah berprestij seperti anugerah industri lebuh raya 2021. Anugerah-anugerah lain termasuklah Frost and Civilian, Asia Pacific Best Practices Award, ASEAN Energy Award, Malaysia Book of Record, CIDB, Malaysia Construction Industry Excellence Award, UNESCO, Asia Pacific Heritage Award dan Malaysia Green Building Council atau MGBC Award. Anugerah-anugerah ini menunjukkan pencapaian dan sumbangan syarikat-syarikat konsesi lebuh raya di Malaysia ke arah inovasi dan kecemerlangan. KKR akan sentiasa bekerjasama dengan setiap lapisan penggiat industri pembinaan bagi membentuk masa depan industri pembinaan yang lebih dinamik, inovatif dan berdaya saing serta menyumbang serta signifikan kepada pembangunan negara dan kesejahteraan rakyat. Selari dengan pengukuhan visi dan misi KKR sebagai penaju pembangunan infrastruktur dan industri pembinaan negara, Dasar Pembinaan Negara 2030 NCP 2030 yang dilancarkan pada tahun 2021 dihasratkan menjadi game changer dalam memacu transformasi sektor pembinaan. Dengan 6 teras yang digariskan kepentingan produktiviti, perancangan, reka bentuk, kualiti, keselamatan, profesionalisme, kelestarian dan kemapanan, pengurusan fasilitis pengantarabangsa dan daya saing industri diharap akan menjadi nadi penggerak sektor pembinaan negara. Ini juga terpakai kepada pembangunan industri lebuh raya betul di Malaysia. Yang bahagia Tan-Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk-Datuk, Datin-Datin, Tuan-Tuan dan Puan-Puan, bercerita mengenai keselamatan pengguna lebuh raya hari ini, saban hari kita disogokkan dengan berita kemalangan yang melibatkan jalan raya dan lebuh raya betul. Berdasarkan data daripada Polis Diraja Malaysia, PDRM, sebanyak 598,635 laporan kemalangan telah dicatatkan pada tahun 2023. Walaupun kemalangan ini melibatkan pelbagai jalan, penekanan terhadap keselamatan lebuh raya betul adalah krusial. Berdasarkan rekod LLM, sehingga 2023 terdapat sebanyak 28,479 kemalangan dicatatkan melibatkan kenderaan di lebuh raya betul. Oleh itu, Kerajaan Malaysia telah melancarkan Pelan Keselamatan Jalan Raya Malaysia PKJRM 2022-2023 yang bertujuan untuk mengurangkan kemalangan jalan raya dan meningkatkan keselamatan jalan raya. Pelan ini menyasarkan pengurangan sekurang-kurangnya 50% kematian berbanding dengan jumlah yang direkodkan pada tahun 2019. So, untuk makluman yang bahagia Datuk-Datuk, Tan-Sri, Tuan-Tuan dan Puan, ini bukan bermakna, target ini bukan bermakna kita membenarkan kes-kes kematian boleh berlaku. Kadang-kadang saya rasa masa kita dulu, masa zaman saya di bahagian dasar tu, kita ada berbincang juga perkara ni. Bila kita put target sepatut kita zero kematian. Tapi kita letak ni 50% ya. Bukan kita mana kita membenarkan kes-kes kematian tu berlaku di lebuh raya betul kita. Ya. Ini selaras dengan revolusi pertubuhan bangsa-bangsa bersatu yang mengisytiharkan 2021 sehingga 2030 sebagai dekad tindakan keselamatan jalan raya yang kedua. Syarikat konsesi perlu melaksanakan pelbagai inisiatif dan strategi termasuk meningkatkan penggunaan teknologi terkini seperti kecerdasan buatan AI dalam mengesan dan menguruskan kemalangan dengan lebih cepat dan cekap. Diharap inisiatif ini dapat mengurangkan kadar kemalangan jalan raya dan keselamatan pengguna lebuh raya dapat dipertingkatkan lagi. Kerajaan Malaysia juga telah melaksanakan inisiatif Bitara Madani bagi menangani kemalangan melibatkan motosikal yang dicatatkan, iaitu melibatkan 6,854 kes berbanding kes kemalangan sebanyak 23,351 kes pada tahun 2023. Bagi memudahkan penunggang motosikal mencari tempat berteduh, terutama semasa cuaca baru, inisiatif penyediaan 119 tempat berteduh motosikal akan dibina di sepanjang lebuh raya seluruh negara sedang dilaksanakan. Sehingga Julai 2024 terdapat sebanyak 107 daripada 119 tempat berteduh ini telah siap dibina, manakala selebihnya dijadual akan siap pada penghujung tahun ini. Selain daripada pelaksanaan Bitara Madani, syarikat konsesi perlu mempelbagaikan usaha untuk mengurangkan kemalangan, terutamanya melibatkan motosikal yang mencatatkan 75% kemalangan yang melibatkan kes kematian di lebuh raya. Pemain dalam industri lebuh raya betul perlu memastikan keselamatan pengguna lebuh raya terjamin dari segi kepematuhan terhadap garis panduan dan spesifikasi dalam penyediaan satu-satu reka bentuk lebuh raya. Garis panduan dan spesifikasi yang telah ditetapkan haruslah dipatuhi dan tidak menganggap perkara tersebut remeh. Pihak konsesi dan juru perunding lebuh raya perlu kekal berdaya maju dengan mengutamakan reka bentuk yang berpaksikan kepada user-centric design dalam proses perancangan dan juga pembangunan lebuh raya. Setiap parameter dan aspek-aspek seperti reka bentuk geometrik yang mengambil kira lebar lorong, jejambat dan radius selekoh perlu dilihat dengan teliti untuk memastikan aliran trafik yang lancar dan mengurangkan risiko kemalangan. Dan baru-baru ni apabila ada kes di Duke, tak silap ya, baru ni, dan saya pun pergi buat lawatan. My first day jadi KSU, kita pergi pusing tengok. Dan apabila saya pergi tengok kat situ, rupanya salah satu mungkin kelemahan kita, mungkin kita terlepas pandang, iaitu dia tak ada apa yang dinamakan sebagai speed breaker. Sebab dia ada gradient, dia turun sikit macam bukit, tapi tak ada speed breaker. So mungkin itu ada sikitlah kelemahan dari segi design, yang mana dinyatakan di sini, ya. Pihak konsesi dan juga design fault ini akan menjadi kecacatan kekal pada satu-satu lebuh raya jika tidak dititik beratkan dan bakal mendedahkan kerajaan dan juga syarikat konsesi kepada litigasi undang-undang dari pengguna yang terkesan. Sehubungan itu, tanggungjawab syarikat konsesi dalam memastikan keselamatan dan keselesaan pengguna wajib diutamakan dalam setiap projek lebuh raya. Yang bahagia datuk-datuk, tansi-tansi, tuan-tuan dan puan yang saya kasih sekalian, selain aspek keselamatan, kualiti juga menjadi fokus utama. Malaysia berada di kedudukan ke-19 dengan skor sebanyak 5.3 dalam World Road Quality Ranking 2023. Dalam usaha memperbaiki kedudukan The World Road Quality Ranking adalah dengan meluaskan rangkaian jalan raya untuk memenuhi keperluan trafik yang semakin meningkat dan meningkatkan hubungan antara kawasan bandar dan luar bandar. Penyambungan lebuh raya ke lebuh raya atau highway to highway connectivity adalah langkah penting dalam meningkatkan jaringan pengangkutan negara kita. Dengan menghubungkan lebuh raya utama, kita dapat mempercepatkan perjalanan antara bandar-bandar utama. Selain itu, penyelenggaraan dan pembaikan lebuh raya yang berkesan bagi memastikan lebuh raya berada dalam keadaan baik secara berterusan. Penggunaan bahan-bahan teknologi, pembinaan jalan yang inovatif akan membantu memastikan jangka hayat turapan lebih tahan lama serta tidak memerlukan penyelenggaraan yang lebih kerap. Berhubung dengan perkara ini juga, tadi kita ada tengah chat dengan yang berhormat di Malam Menti juga, kita ada share jugalah pengalaman kita di Kementerian Kerja Raya apabila kita nak maintain jalan persekutuan, ya, jalan persekutuan. Untuk makluman yang bahagia, tansi-tansi, datuk-datuk, Seri, tuan-tuan dan puan, kita memerlukan sebanyak 4 bilion. Banyak kita perlukan 4 bilion untuk kita maintain jalan-jalan persekutuan di seluruh negara. Tapi cuma every year kita cuma dapat lebih kurang 1 bilion saja. Sebab tu dulu kita ada joke sikit, untuk Datuk Seri, kita joke sikit. Kalau kata kita bawa kereta, kalau kita kat belakang lah, kita tidur dalam kereta, tapi tiba-tiba sampai satu jalan tu, kita terjaga. Itulah jalan Federal Road. Sebab apa, Datuk-datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan, jalan persekutuan dia banyak dam haji. Tahu dam haji? Dia tampal tu. Pace apa, jalan yang rosak tu, banyak. Kita panggil dam haji. Sampai kita buat joke itu. So, bila kita jumpa tragedi apa, bila kita nak beat budget, yang tu selalu kita cerita dengan tragedi. Dan insyaAllah nanti saya nak kena jumpa KSP Datuk Johan pula untuk bincang perkara ni lah. Ya, supaya kita dapat maintain jalan raya yang sebaiknya lah. Ya. Dalam hal ini, LLM telah membangunkan serta menggunakan sistem Expressway Performance Indicator atau EPI untuk mengoptimalkan pemantauan penyelenggaraan aset lebuh raya selaras dengan garis panduan yang ditetapkan. Sistem EPI dibangunkan khusus untuk memantau dan menilai prestasi operasi serta penyelenggaraan lebuh raya. Melalui sistem EPI, penilaian prestasi telah dijalankan menggunakan sistem ataupun konsep star rating, yang mana penilaian prestasi penyelenggaraan lebuh raya dapat dilaksanakan dengan lebih telus, sistematik serta dapat memastikan setiap lebuh raya beroperasi dan diuruskan memenuhi standard tertinggi demi keselesaan dan keselamatan pengguna. Parameter pengukuran sistem EPI merangkumi rutin, berkala serta pengurusan inovasi aset lebuh raya dengan memberi tumpuan kepada elemen civil and structure atau CNS dan mechanical and electrical atau MNE dinilai menerusi sistem EPI mengikut indeks skor, dan seterusnya analisis pencapaian keseluruhan adalah selaras dengan objektif kualiti LLM, iaitu melaksanakan analisis penyelenggaraan 2 kali setahun terhadap lebuh raya yang beroperasi untuk mencapai 4 star rating. Terkini bagi tempoh Januari hingga Jun 2024 terdapat 15 buah lebuh raya yang tidak mencapai 4 star rating. Perkara ini perlu diberi perhatian oleh syarikat-syarikat konsesi tersebut untuk mempertingkatkan lagi kualiti lebuh raya betul di Malaysia ini pada masa akan datang. Yang bahagia, Tan Sri Datuk Sri Datuk-datuk, Datin-datin, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, Kementerian Kerja Raya komited untuk merealisasikan aspirasi kerajaan dalam pelan tindakan utama seperti rancangan Malaysia ke-12, RMK ke-12, Pelan Induk Teknologi Hijau, GTMP, dan Rangka Tindakan Mobiliti Rendah Karbon, LCMC 2021-2030. Fokus utama termasuklah mempertingkatkan lagi penggunaan kenderaan elektrik. Yang ni Datuk Sri dia sejalan lah, kereta elektrik. Ya. Dengan menggunakan infrastruktur pengecas pantas di rangkaian lebuh raya utama, ini boleh membantu mengurangkan pelepasan gas rumah hijau dan pencemaran udara sejajar dengan aspirasi kerajaan mana ini menuju negara neutral karbon. Pihak KKR bersama LLM dan syarikat-syarikat konsesi lebuh raya sentiasa komited menyokong kerajaan untuk berkembang ke arah sebuah negara rendah karbon dengan penambahan lebih banyak stesen pengecas pantas EV di sepanjang lebuh raya pada masa hadapan. Terkini terdapat 83 poin pengecas pantas kenderaan elektrik yang telah beroperasi di lokasi dalam lebuh raya betul. Dan kalau kata yang bahagia Datuk Sri, Datuk tuan-tuan dan puan nak pergi tengok, mungkin kita boleh tengoklah siapa yang dah singgah dah di R&R Seremban. Kalau siapa yang belum, dan hari itu kita buat, kita tengok PM pun cukup happy dengan inisiatif yang telah diambil oleh pihak PLAS. Dalam mencorak pertumbuhan teknologi hijau negara, industri lebuh raya telah menyahut saranan kerajaan dengan penggunaan lampu jenis Light Emitting Diode atau LED yang mempunyai jangka hayat lebih lama dan cekap, tenaga dengan penjimatan tenaga hampir 50% berbanding lampu jenis konvensional. Selain itu, lampu jenis LED ini juga tidak menggunakan merkuri atau gas dan ianya lebih mesra kepada alam sekitar dan tidak meninggalkan kesan gas rumah hijau dan perubahan iklim. Di lebuh raya betul, penggunaan lampu jenis LED telah mula diperkenalkan di Lebuh Raya KL Karak sebagai lebuh raya perintis pada tahun 2010 dan telah diperluaskan ke lebuh raya yang lain secara berperingkat. Sehingga kini, sebanyak 28 lebuh raya telah melaksanakannya sama ada secara keseluruhan ataupun sebahagian daripada jajaran. Selain daripada itu, penggunaan tenaga solar daripada sumber tenaga lestari yang boleh diperbaharui pula telah mula dilaksanakan secara berperingkat di lebuh raya betul. Ia dilihat mempunyai potensi yang besar untuk diperkembangkan di Malaysia yang kaya dengan pancaran sinar matahari. Sehingga kini, sebanyak 18 lebuh raya telah melaksanakan dan ianya adalah selaras dengan Pelan Induk Teknologi Hijau Green Technology Master Plan GTP MP 2017 hingga 2030 yang telah diperkenalkan oleh kerajaan. Dengan penggunaan lampu jenis LED dan tenaga solar yang semakin meluas, ianya dilihat dapat meletakkan industri lebuh raya betul di landasan yang baik untuk mencapai matlamat kecekapan tenaga dan kelestarian alam sekitar. Langkah-langkah ini bukan saja dapat membantu dalam mengurangkan kos tenaga tetapi juga menyokong usaha negara ke arah pembangunan yang lebih hijau dan lestari. Sehubungan dengan itu, harapan pemain industri dapat mengadaptasi teknologi ini. Pelaksanaan penarafan Indeks Lebuh Raya Hijau Malaysia atau Malaysia Green Highway Index MyGHI oleh LLM adalah sebagai satu langkah menyokong dasar dan polisi teknologi hijau negara. Memandangkan kepada aktiviti pembangunan infrastruktur lebuh raya adalah di antara penyumbang utama kepada peningkatan kadar intensi karbon. Pelaksanaan penarafan MyGHI ini juga sebagai langkah proaktif dengan misi utama iaitu ke arah mewujudkan sustainability transportation. Memandangkan lebuh raya telah beroperasi berusia lebih 4 dekad, diminta syarikat-syarikat menyahut dan menyokong pembaharuan ini dengan menaik taraf fasilitis sedia ada. Yang bagi tansi, Datuk Si, Datuk-Datuk, Datin-Datin, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya kasih sekalian. Dalam era globalisasi dan perkembangan pesat teknologi, kerajaan terus untuk memastikan jalan raya dan lebuh raya betul negara ini sentiasa dalam keadaan optimum. Pusat pengurusan trafik memainkan peranan penting dalam menguruskan aliran trafik semasa insiden. Sehubungan dengan itu, transformasi bagi memperkasakan Pusat Traffic Management Center atau TMC, LLM dan di syarikat konsesi perlu dilaksanakan bagi mengharungi arus pemodenan ini. Ini termasuklah memperkenalkan teknologi baru dan penekanan inovatif dalam pengurusan kesakan lalu lintas. Semalam apabila saya berjumpa dengan Yang Berhormat Timbalan Menteri, ada saya berkongsi pengalaman saya ke China. Saya ke Qingdao. Saya rasa siapa-siapa dekat sini yang pernah ke Qingdao mungkin kita boleh tengok. Dan di Qingdao pada tahun 2019 saya ke Qingdao, dia dah guna AI. Dan dalam bandar Qingdao, apabila berlaku kesakan, AI akan divert trafik ke jalan-jalan yang tidak sesak. So yang ni salah satu contoh. Dan ini yang mungkin kita perlu tengok juga, penggunaan teknologi baru. Pusat pengurusan trafik disepadukan dengan pengurusan kemalangan atau insiden di lebuh raya dengan melibatkan sistem yang komprehensif untuk menangani kemalangan dan pantas dan cepat. Dengan menggunakan teknologi terkini, pusat pengurusan trafik dapat mengesan kemalangan dengan cepat melalui CCTV yang dipasang di sepanjang lebuh raya. Sistem pengangkutan pintar, Intelligent Transport System atau ITS, Malaysia yang bertujuan meningkatkan mobiliti, keselamatan dan kemampanan sambil menyediakan pengalaman perjalanan yang lancar dan cekap. Penggunaan teknologi canggih seperti Building Information Modeling atau BIM demi menyahut saranan kerajaan dalam program transformasi industri pembinaan KKR, termasuk LLM sedang dalam usaha dan komited untuk merealisasikan transformasi proses kerja yang berkaitan dengan perancangan, reka bentuk, pembinaan dan penyelenggaraan serta penyediaan lebuh raya dengan mengadaptasikan BIM. Diharap pemain industri lebuh raya betul bersedia untuk mengadaptasi teknologi BIM ini. Adalah tidak mustahil bagi mengadaptasikan teknologi BIM ini dengan dilaksanakan dalam setiap pembangunan dan pengoperasian lebuh raya betul di Malaysia. Penggunaan BIM telah dilaksanakan di lebuh raya Pembentangan sepanjang lebih 2,000 kilometer yang menghubungkan Sabah, Sarawak dan Brunei. So dalam konteks ini juga saya ingin berkongsi juga penggunaan BIM apabila dilaksanakan oleh KKR bersama dengan BIM Asia pada tahun awal tahun 2015, kutip saya, masa kita buat, dan kita berjaya dapatkan award di London pada 2018. Ya. Dan apa yang saya nak berkongsi dengan apa yang bagi Tan Si, Datuk-datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan, apabila kita guna BIM untuk bina lebuh raya tersebut, kita berjaya selesaikan sebanyak lebih 3,000 clashes. Dan sekiranya kita tak menggunakan BIM dan kita tak berjaya selesaikan clashes ini, projek lebuh raya Pembentangan di Sarawak itu akan terlewat sebanyak 10 tahun. Ya? Dan bila kita convert dalam dollar and cent, kita berjaya menjimatkan duit kerajaan pada ketika itu sebanyak 157 juta. Ya? Dan kos yang kita gunakan untuk embark penggunaan BIM ini cuma 0.07%. Ini bagaimana kita tengok BIM ini boleh menyelesaikan banyak isu-isu dari pelaksanaan projek. Teknologi BIM yang dikenali sebagai pemodelan maklumat lebuh raya atau PML dalam konteks pembangunan lebuh raya merupakan pendekatan penting dalam memastikan perancangan, pembinaan dan pengurusan projek lebuh raya yang kompleks sehingga penyelenggaraan dapat dioptimumkan. Pelaksanaan sistem ini dilihat dapat menyumbang kepada pengurangan kos dan masa, meningkatkan kualiti seamless communication in all level dan capaian secara real time dan berterusan. Sistem pembayaran terbuka di beberapa lebuh raya betul di Malaysia melangkah maju dalam pengumpulan tol yang bertujuan untuk mempermudahkan proses pembayaran dan mengurangkan kesesakan. Sehingga September 2023, sejumlah 12 lebuh raya terbuka. 12 lebuh raya dalam operasi di Malaysia telah menyertai sistem pembayaran terbuka. Sistem ini membenarkan pengguna lebuh raya untuk membayar tol menggunakan kad kredit atau kad debit, menyediakan alternatif baharu dan kemudahan dalam proses pembayaran tol selain daripada kaedah sedia ada iaitu seperti touch and go, smart tag dan radio frequency identification atau RFID. Pelaksanaan sistem ini adalah sebahagian daripada inisiatif kerajaan untuk memperkemaskan pengumpulan tol dan meningkatkan kecekapan operasi lebuh raya. Sistem multi-lane fast flow MLFF juga diperkenalkan untuk membolehkan tol berkelajuan tinggi tanpa perlu berhenti atau memperlahankan kenderaan. Kalau kita tengok kat luar negara, kalau kita cakap MLF refer kepada multi-lane free flow. Tapi kita kat Malaysia ni kita tak boleh guna free. Sebab sagi dia kena bayar, dia marah kat kerajaan. Ya? Sebab tu kita tukar kepada multi-lane fast flow. Ya? Ini YB Menteri bagi tahu kat saya lah. Ya? Pengenalan teknologi baru seperti sistem high speed weight emotion atau HS WIM ini bertujuan untuk mengenal pasti pemandu lori yang membawa muatan berlebihan secara masa sebenar dan automatik tanpa memerlukan kenderaan berhenti. Pelaksanaan proses projek perintis HS WIM telah dilaksanakan di 11 lokasi lebuh raya utara selatan. Teknologi WIM telah digunakan untuk mengesan kenderaan berat yang melebihi had muatan, membantu mengurangkan risiko kemalangan dan kerosakan jalan dengan adanya teknologi ini, pemantauan dan penguatkuasaan terhadap kenderaan berat dapat dilakukan serta mengenakan cas tambahan bagi kenderaan lebih muatan dapat dilaksanakan pada masa hadapan. Tapi dalam konteks ini untuk makluman Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk-Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan, kita masih tengok lagi dari segi legal. Ya, kalau kata besok kita buat ni kita ada legal tak ready lagi, kita bimbang nanti pengguna jalan raya ni dia saman kerajaan pula. Ya, ini insya-Allah setelah kita selesai laksanakan dari segi perundangan, insya-Allah kita perlu laksanakan. Sebab apa Datuk-Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan, kita perlu laksanakan. Saya ambil satu contoh, kau kata kawasan dekat dengan satu area di Perak. Satu stres tu sampai baru ni pun saya tanya lagi. Plus masih lagi ke nak kena buat repair jalan sebab dia terpaksa keluarkan peruntukan besar untuk repair jalan disebabkan isu lori ataupun truk yang lebih muatan, ya. Otomasi dan robotik juga memainkan peranan penting dalam penyelenggaraan, membolehkan tugas-tugas berbahaya seperti membaki jalan di kawasan berisiko tinggi dilakukan dengan lebih selamat dan efisien. Tadi kalau kita tengok tadi 3D scanning yang dekat pameran tadi, macam itulah tuan-tuan dan puan. Dan dulu pun masa dah 5 atau 6 tahun lepas, kita pun dah tengok that kind of technology. Sebab kata contoh ada kawasan kita ada cerun yang berbahaya. So bila cerun roboh ya, so kita guna drone untuk scan kita punya cerun yang roboh tu tanpa melibatkan manusia lah pergi panjat dekat cerun sebab berbahaya. Dan bila kita scan tu dan kita boleh tahu, kita boleh buat anggaran berapalah kubik meter konkrit kita akan guna pakai, dan kita secara langsung kita boleh buat anggaran kasar berapa kos yang terlibat. Begitunya canggih teknologi sekarang ni, ya. Yang bahagia Tan Sri, Datuk-Datuk Sri, Datuk-Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan yang saya kasihi sekalian, saya percaya hadirin dan hadirat telah mendengar mengenai program My Jalan JKR yang telah dilancarkan pada 24 Ogos 2023 yang lalu. Sebab tu tadi saya nak naik tadi, dia orang pesan kat saya, jangan lupa pakai ni. Tagline ni jangan lupa pakai. Saya pun pakailah. Dia orang paksa saya Datuk Sri. Okey. Dengan membawa tagline jalan kita, tanggungjawab kita, ini jelas membuktikan KKR sangat serius dalam merangkul semua pihak dalam mewujudkan jalan raya dan lebuh raya yang berimpak tinggi bukan sahaja kepada industri tapi juga dapat dirasai oleh rakyat. My Jalan yang berorientasikan konsep action speak louder than word dan no wrong door policy akan menjadi platform utama talian digital melalui aplikasi My Jalan dalam mewujudkan interaksi berterusan di antara kerajaan, pihak industri dan rakyat dalam memperkasakan perkhidmatan penyelenggaraan. Dalam menjayakan program ini, KKR mengharapkan pelibatan yang lebih menyeluruh daripada semua pihak terutama syarikat kongsi akan membolehkan aspek senggalaan lebih efektif dan efisien dalam memastikan kesejahteraan, keselesaan dan keselamatan rakyat didahului. Dan dalam konteks ni bila saya jadi KSU, hari pertama dah orang dah hantar kat saya dah mesej. Sebab dia guna My Jalan. Yang ni kes di Yan. Apabila berlakunya banjir baru-baru ni, ya. Dasar sering dan acap kali dijadikan sumber dan rujukan yang vital dalam melaksanakan setiap aspirasi kerajaan. Pada masa yang sama, dasar sentiasa dirujuk untuk memastikan semua pihak tahu boundary yang perlu dipatuhi. KKR pada masa ini sedang menggubal dua dasar yang akan menjadi payung kepada pembangunan infrastruktur secara khusus, sektor pembinaan secara keseluruhannya. Dasar pembinaan jalan dan lebuh raya 2030 atau DPJL 2030 adalah satu dokumen strategik dibangunkan bertujuan untuk menjadikan panduan dalam menetapkan hala tuju dan asas dalam perancangan serta pembinaan jalan raya oleh semua pihak berkaitan termasuk kementerian, jabatan, agensi di peringkat persekutuan, negeri dan tempatan serta pihak swasta. DPJL sedang dibangunkan dengan mengambil kira keperluan teknikal dan perbengkasan industri dengan mengangkat elemen perancangan secara holistik, penyediaan reka bentuk, keselamatan, kelestarian, sistem pintar dan penyelenggaraan efisien serta kos efektif. DPJL ini diharapkan menjadi rujukan utama dalam penyediaan konektiviti yang dibangunkan dengan mengambil kira keperluan-keperluan antaranya dalam AP 182, Highway Network Development Plan, HNDP, Intelligent Transport System, ITS, Blueprint, dasar pengangkutan negara dan dasar-dasar berkaitan infrastruktur serta perundangan-perundangan yang sedang berkuat kuasa. KKR menjangkakan DPJL akan dilancarkan pada tahun 2025 dan ingin menjemput pihak syarikat konsesi untuk terus memberikan cadangan dan input bagi membolehkan DPJL ini komprehensif dan lebih berfokus. Sejak tahun 2007, kerajaan telah melaksanakan Konvensyen Pengurusan Aset dan Fasilitis Negara atau singkatan NAFAM untuk mempromosikan pengurusan aset dan fasilitis yang berkesan. NAFAM berfungsi sebagai platform untuk berkongsi pengetahuan dan amalan terbaik dalam pengurusan aset serta meningkatkan kesedaran tentang pentingnya pemeliharaan dan penyelenggaraan infrastruktur. Berdasarkan Teras 4 Dasar Pembinaan Negara 2030, pula penyelenggaraan fasilitas atau aset menjadi fokus utama dalam usaha memperkukuhkan sektor pembinaan di Malaysia. Inisiatif ini bertujuan untuk meningkatkan kesedaran mengenai kepentingan subsektor yang merupakan komponen kritikal dalam memastikan infrastruktur yang dibina dapat berfungsi dengan lebih baik dan bertahan lama. KKR sedang dalam proses membangunkan dasar senggara aset dan infrastruktur negara atau DSEN, bertujuan untuk mewujudkan infrastruktur yang berdaya saing dan tahan melalui penyelenggaraan dan pengurusan yang lebih berterusan, yang seterusnya akan menambahkan nilai kepada aset dan infrastruktur negara. Hasrat ini juga selari dengan visi kementerian iaitu ke arah kesejahteraan rakyat di mana segala aset dan infrastruktur yang disenggara dengan baik bukan hanya dapat memanjangkan jangka hayat malahan dapat menjamin keselamatan dan keselesaan pengguna. So dalam konteks ni, kalau siapa yang pergi ke Cambridge, mungkin dia akan tengok. Dan kalau kata saya siapa tak pernah pergi Cambridge tu, kita boleh tengok Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Dan kebetulan dulu saya pernah berkursus di Cambridge dan saya terkejut. Terkejut sungguh sebab apa? Saya tengok dah berusia lebih pada beratusan tahun, tapi bangunan tu masih lagi intact. Yang inilah peranan yang kita nak masuk dalam FM kelak yang dinyatakan dalam Dasar Pembinaan Negara. Dasar ini akan melibatkan pengurusan fasilitas tidak hanya untuk membangunkan bangunan di bawah pentadbiran kerajaan tetapi juga untuk sektor swasta. Ini termasuklah pelbagai jenis binaan dan infrastruktur menjadikan DSEN sebagai pendekatan menyuruh dalam pengurusan aset. Ini sekaligus akan menjadikan driver dalam pembangunan industri perkhidmatan pengurusan aset dan fasilitis di Malaysia. Cadangan pembangunan DSEN adalah bagi menyahut seruan penggiat industri agar KKR dapat merancang hala tuju industri penggunaan infrastruktur di Malaysia, di mana dasar ini akan dijadikan sebagai panduan dan rujukan oleh semua pihak terutama kepada penggiat industri dalam memperkasakan bidang penyelenggaraan infrastruktur secara holistik dan komprehensif di setiap rantaian. So dalam konteks ini juga kita tak nak jadi negara kita ni dia tengok kita ada first class building tapi kita ada third class maintenance. That's apa yang perlu kita beri perhatian. KKR akan memimpin pertumbuhan serta kemajuan sektor ini di Malaysia. Pemerkasaan pembangunan infrastruktur dan pengurusan aset menyuruh adalah perlu untuk setiap aset yang dibangunkan dan diuruskan dengan cekap dan berkesan. Syarikat konsesi adalah the frontliner bagi infrastruktur lebuh raya betul di Malaysia. Dasar penswastaan yang dilaksanakan mempunyai objektif khusus yang jelas dalam memaksimalkan perkhidmatan lebuh raya betul sebagai jalan alternatif persekutuan sekaligus mengurangkan beban kerajaan dan rakyat. Ini membawa kepada pertanyaan, apakah aspirasi dan strategi syarikat konsesi dalam memastikan kedua-dua hasrat tersebut dapat dicapai. Seperti yang kita sedia maklum, Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri Malaysia pada 10 Jun 2024 yang lalu telah melancarkan dasar TVET negara 2030 dan mengangkat 5 teras utama dan 23 strategi untuk memperkasakan modal insan negara. Antara perkara yang berkait rapat secara terus kepada sektor pembinaan adalah keperluan menggalakkan perkongsian kepakaran dan teknologi antara industri dan penyedia latihan TVET di bawah teras C, kerjasama industri cekap dan produktif. Sebagai konsesi boleh mengambil peluang dan mencipta ruang dan peluang untuk graduan TVET menyertai perkhidmatan lebuh raya betul ini melalui kerjasama dengan institusi latihan TVET antaranya 6 akademi binaan Malaysia di bawah CIDB. Teknologi hijau merupakan salah satu matlamat global iaitu Sustainable Development Goal SDG, Build Resilient and Sustainable Infrastructure, merujuk kepada MIDA yang menyatakan salah satu fokus di bawah teknologi hijau di Malaysia adalah perkhidmatan hijau. Masih banyak aspek yang belum dimanfaatkan sepenuhnya antara perkhidmatan untuk stesen pengecas, antaranya perkhidmatan untuk stesen pengecas EV, operasi stesen pengecas EV, bangunan hijau, pusat data hijau, sijil dan pengesahan hijau. Saya yakin syarikat konsesi lebuh raya on board dengan kerajaan dalam hal ini. Di sini saya menyarankan supaya syarikat konsesi juga mengambil perhatian dalam merancang, menghasil dan mengguna bahan-bahan binaan, proses kerja dan pelaporan berteraskan teknologi dan inovasi hijau. Menyentuh perkara berkaitan dengan teknologi AI pula, saya melihat ianya akan dibincangkan dalam banyak agenda sepanjang persidangan selama 3 hari kelak. Apa yang saya hendak nyatakan adalah syarikat konsesi sangat diperlukan untuk meneroka ruang dan peluang penggunaan teknologi terkini seperti AI ini adalah dalam pengurusan trafik dan pemantauan operasi lebuh raya di bawah kawalan seliaan masing-masing. Yang bagi Tan-Sri, Datuk Seri, Datuk-Datuk, Datin-Datin, Tuan-Tuan dan Puan, sebagai penutup, lebuh raya betul di Malaysia bersedia untuk menjadi transformatif ke arah infrastruktur yang lebih pintar, lebih mapan dan lebih selamat. Dengan menerima teknologi baru, kita dapat menyepadukan penyelesaian mobiliti yang lebih luas dan mengutamakan reka bentuk, menumpukan penggunaan user-centric design. Lebuh raya betul akan datang bukan sahaja dapat meningkatkan konektiviti dan keselesaan tetapi juga menyumbang kepada pemulihan alam sekitar dan berdaya saing dan berdaya tahan ekonomi. Semasa kita membayangkan lebuh raya akan datang adalah penting untuk mengekalkan kualiti optimum kerja penyelenggaraan dan operasi melalui pelaksanaan penyelesaian yang inovatif. Akhirnya, visi lebuh raya akan datang di Malaysia adalah merupakan satu kemajuan, kemakmuran dan kemampanan di mana infrastruktur lebuh raya berfungsi sebagai pemangkin kepada perubahan positif dan membuka jalan ke arah pengalaman pemanduan yang lebih lancar untuk penggunaan jalan raya. Ini dia orang kena saya ni, saya mentang-mentang saya baru jadi pakai isu. Dia orang dera saya ni hari ni. Ya. Yang bagi Tan-Sri, Datuk-Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan, saya ingin berkongsi sikit satu statement daripada Henry Ford yang pernah mengatakan, if everyone is moving forward together, the success take care of itself. Saya berharap 33 syarikat konsesi lebuh raya betul yang hadir pada hari ini akan bekerjasama dalam membangunkan lebuh raya betul di Malaysia. Marilah kita sama-sama menyokong usaha ini demi masa depan yang lebih cerah dan selamat untuk semua. Sekian, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Majlis merakamkan ucapan jutaan terima kasih atas keynote speech itu tadi, dan seterusnya majlis menjemput dan mempersilakan yang berbahagia Ketua Setiausaha yang berbahagia Datuk Insinyur Syazali bin Harun, Ketua Pengarah Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia, untuk menyerahkan cenderahati kepada yang berbahagia Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Kerja Raya. Dipersilakan. Itu dia tadi tuan-tuan dan puan-puan. Sekali lagi tepukan yang paling gemuruh kepada yang berbahagia Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian Kerja Raya atas keynote speech beliau sebentar tadi. Terima kasih juga diucapkan kepada Ketua Pengarah Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia atas kesudian menyampaikan cenderamata kepada Ketua Setiausaha Negara, Ketua Setiausaha Kementerian. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, seterusnya majlis akan diteruskan dengan sesi taklimat pengenalan Road Engineering Association of Asia and Australasia dan Road Engineering Association Malaysia. Speaker merupakan ahli aktif RIM, ahli majlis RIA dan pengurusi Young Engineers and Professional. Untuk itu majlis mempersilakan Yang Berusaha Tuan Insinyur Hamzah bin Hashim, wakil kepada Setiausaha Kehormat RIM, untuk menyampaikan taklimat beliau. Dipersilakan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi syrahli sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli, amma ba'du. Ribuan terima kasih yang diberikan kepada Jawatankuasa Penganjur Highway Concession Conference kerana memberikan peluang kepada Road Engineering Association of Malaysia untuk mempromosikan persatuan kami, di mana sebenarnya ramai di kalangan kita ni merupakan ahli persatuan sedia ada dalam RIM, dan terima kasih kerana memberikan sokongan kepada persatuan kami. Jadi tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, sedikit maklum latar belakang. Sebenarnya Road Engineering Association Malaysia ditubuhkan berdasarkan Persatuan Kejuruteraan Serantau Road Engineering Association of Asia Australasia yang telah ditubuhkan pada tahun 1973, di mana pada masa itu pertubuhan ini ditubuhkan sendiri oleh JKR Malaysia menerusi Ketua Pengarah Kerja Raya pada masa tersebut. Jadi pada tahun 1993 Malaysian Chapter ditubuhkan, dan pada tahun 1997 untuk memenuhi aspirasi negara, nama persatuan tersebut ditukar kepada Road Engineering Association Malaysia, dan sehingga kini kekal menjadi ikon dalam kejuruteraan jalan di Malaysia. Hadirin sekalian, RIM mempunyai visi untuk menjadi lead organisation untuk mempengaruhi dan menyediakan hala tuju kepada pemain industri jalan raya di Malaysia. Seterusnya, RIM juga berhasrat untuk menjadi peneraju dan juga pusat rujukan menerusi upholding professionalism dan penerbitan relevant standards, dan seterusnya RIM juga bercadang untuk menempatkan diri di dalam industri jalan raya Malaysia supaya kita sentiasa membantu kerajaan dalam menetapkan hala tuju kejuruteraan jalan di Malaysia. Untuk pengetahuan Datuk Seri, dasar pembinaan jalan dan lebuh raya, RIM diberi peluang untuk menjadi salah seorang, pemain industri dijemput untuk memberikan input untuk untuk memberikan input lah kepada dasar pembinaan jalan. Terima kasih Datuk Seri atas peluang diberikan. Okey, boleh saya ni saya skip, saya akan explain sekejap lagi. Okey, ini merupakan ahli-ahli majlis yang sedang meneroji RIM pada masa ini. Ketua Pengarah, mantan Ketua Pengarah Kerja Raya iaitu Datuk Ahmad Reza Menggular Rasul merupakan presiden buat masa sekarang, di mana Datuk Azali juga merupakan salah seorang naib presiden yang mewakili badan kerajaan, badan berkenaan kerajaan. Kita ada juga seorang deputy presiden, Datuk Seri Engineer Hasno, yang mewakili praktis swasta. Kita juga dua ahli bekas presiden yang masih aktif dalam persatuan. Kita juga ada Setiausaha Kehormat, di mana saya mewakili beliau pada hari ini, dan juga kita ada Honorary Treasurer yang menjalankan aktiviti seharian dalam Road Engineering Association Malaysia. Mereka merupakan ahli kaunsil yang dilantik setiap 2 tahun sekali. Mereka ini terdiri daripada pemain-pemain industri dan juga daripada badan kerajaan, daripada akademik dan sebagainya. Mereka inilah yang akan menggerakkan aktiviti-aktiviti RIM, ya. Kalau ni saya nak highlight Datuk Zakaria juga salah seorang pada ahli kaunsil kita lah. Jadi RIM telah mewujudkan beberapa jawatankuasa untuk menggerakkan aktiviti-aktiviti RIM, di mana saya highlightkan di sini terdapat beberapa jawatankuasa yang bergiat aktif, antaranya ialah technical group ya. Technical group, di mana technical group inilah merupakan jawatankuasa yang bertanggungjawab menwujudkan garis panduan, spekulasi dan sebagainya untuk menyokong industri kita. Dan juga kita ada beberapa jawatankuasa lain seperti local and global network, road industry intelligence, technical events seperti penganjuran seminar, education fund, yang profesional, yang engineers dan profesional, di mana saya sendiri merupakan jawatankuasa penganjur. Dan juga seterusnya kita juga ingin menggalakkan lebih ramai lagi ahli-ahli menyertai persatuan kita untuk benefit-benefit dan manfaat yang boleh diraih bersama. Yang bagi datuk-datuk sekalian, ini merupakan salah satu outcome daripada RIM, iaitu penerbitan RIM Guidelines, di mana mungkin kita semua perasan. Saya nak maklumkan di sini bahawa RIM Guideline ini dibuat ataupun dirumuskan oleh pemain industri untuk kepada industri. Dan juga RIM Guideline ini tidak akan bercanggah dengan arahan teknik JKR ataupun spesifikasi lebang lebuh raya. Kita juga sedaya upaya memberikan RIM Guideline ini merupakan komplement kepada spesifikasi yang sedia ada. Pada waktu ini terdapat 28 RIM Guideline yang berada di dalam pasaran yang boleh diperolehi. Seterusnya, antara inisiatif projek RIM ialah penganjuran conference dan juga seminar yang sama ada bersifat global dan juga bersifat spesifik. Antaranya penganjuran utama ialah Malaysian Road Conference yang saya akan promote sebentar lagi. Seterusnya, kita juga boleh merumuskan satu bentuk latihan untuk pemain industri. Pada masa ini, khusus yang sangat dikenali oleh RIM ialah Road Safety Audit yang kita laksanakan setiap tahun. Sukacita dimaklumkan, Road Safety Audit ini telah pun boleh berdaftar dengan Lembaga Jurutera Malaysia untuk menjadi Certified Road Safety Auditor. Juga ini merupakan salah satu seminar yang kita buat pada tahun lepas dengan kerjasama dengan World Road Congress Technical Committee TC 4.1 Pavement, di mana itu adalah kelebihan RIM, di mana kita mempunyai akses kepada pertubuhan antarabangsa untuk kita wujudkan seminar bersifat spesifik. Sekiranya ada permintaan daripada tuan-tuan dan puan sekalian, kita boleh usahakanlah untuk mengajurkan seminar-seminar dan mendapatkan pemain-pemain industri di peringkat antarabangsa untuk datang dan menjadikan majlis kita. Seterusnya, kita tidak lupakan juga corporate social responsibility di bawah RIM, di mana kita boleh menjadikan non-binding financial aid kepada para pelajar, di mana kita akan serahkan bantuan-bantuan kewangan ini semasa majlis-majlis besar kita. Seterusnya, penubuhan young engineers and professional, iaitu kita ingin menggalakkan lebih ramai jurutera-jurutera muda terlibat di dalam persatuan dan juga terlibat dari aspek teknikal melalui persatuan. Kita juga ada menjadikan anugerah kepada best paper di dalam Malaysia Road Conference dan juga anugerah kepada pelajar-pelajar tahun akhir di dalam bidang kejuruteraan. InsyaAllah pada tahun ini kita akan sampaikan anugerah ini kepada pelajar-pelajar yang terpilih semasa Malaysian Road Conference. Dan seterusnya, terdapat beberapa kolaborasi di peringkat antarabangsa yang di mana RIM mewakili Malaysia terlibat di peringkat antarabangsa, dan yang terkini pada tahun lepas kita telah pun terlibat dengan penganjuran 26 World Road Congress di Prague, Republic Czech. Seterusnya, tidak sah kalau kita tidak ada aktiviti sosial yang merapatkan hubungan sesama kita. Antaranya kita boleh penganjuran annual dinner dan juga social event yang lain lah. Dan insyaAllah nanti kita bolehlah buat aktiviti sosial seperti golf ke technical visit dan sebagainya. Jadi hadirin sekalian, saya ingin highlightkan di sini antara benefit menjadi ahli. Pertama sekali, mestilah dapat diskaun kepada member untuk sekiranya ingin terlibat dalam sebarang aktiviti yang dianjurkan. Seterusnya, tuan-tuan akan diberikan keutamaan sekiranya kita menganjurkan delegasi ke peringkat luar negara, penganjuran dari segi konferens dan sebagainya. Dan juga kita boleh mengenali satu sama lain, pemain-pemain industri, di mana lebih meluaskan lagi pengalaman kita dan juga kenalan kita di peringkat antarabangsa. Okay, jadi ingin saya promote di sini ialah membership. Membership untuk ordinary, iaitu ahli-ahli individu RM60, dan juga kita menggalakkanlah syarikat-syarikat menjadi institutional member, iaitu dengan yuran RM1,100 dengan pembaharuan RM880 setahun. Hadirin sekalian, seterusnya saya ingin mengutarakan RIM affiliation bersama organisasi di peringkat antarabangsa di mana kita merupakan ahli kepada REAAA, World Road Congress, PIAC dan juga International Road Federation. Tapi pada hari ini saya ingin menghalatkan kepada Road Engineering Association of Asia and Australasia. Seperti saya cakap tadi, REAAA diwujudkan pada tahun 1973 dengan Permanent Secretariat di Malaysia, di mana ini merupakan inisiatif JKR Malaysia pada masa tersebut kerana pada selepas Perang Dunia Kedua, tiada terdapat spesifikasi yang khas untuk negara-negara Asia Pasifik, di mana kita berkongsi culture, cuaca yang hampir sama. Jadi inisiatif inilah mewujudkan Road Engineering Asia dan Australasia, di mana kebanyakan negara yang menganggotai ini merupakan mereka yang hampir sama budaya dengan kita. Vision dia ialah menjadi the most effective regional organisation providing members with technology interchange, transfer and service to promote better future in road-related engineering. Dan our mission is to meet the needs of members for professional and organizational understanding and cooperation both within and beyond the region. Hadirin sekalian, saya perkenalkan kepada ahli-ahli majlis REAAA buat masa sekarang. Presiden disandang oleh Dr. Sun Hwan Kim daripada Korea. Kita juga terdapat 4 vice presiden di mana salah seorangnya kekal kepada Ketua Pengarah Kerja Raya, Datuk Wira Engineer Roslan Ismail. Seorang vice presiden daripada Japan, seorang vice presiden daripada Indonesia dan seorang vice presiden daripada Australia. Dan sebabkan penubuhan sekretariat di Malaysia, Secretary General disandang oleh Malaysia sepanjang masa. Ya. Jadi ini merupakan Governing Council di mana Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia juga salah seorang merupakan ahli council di mana sekarang disandang oleh Datuk Razali. Jadi kita sentiasa bermesyuarat untuk mengaktifkan aktiviti REAAA. Okey, saya bawa kepada membership. Sebenarnya membership, sekiranya tuan-tuan menjadi membership RIM, secara automatik tuan-tuan menjadi member kepada REAAA, sama ada individu ataupun kepada institusional. Untuk makluman, dalam RIM terdapat 38 ahli institusional daripada syarikat-syarikat dan di bawah REAAA terdapat 108 syarikat-syarikat bukan sahaja di Malaysia tetapi di negara-negara luar yang menjadi member kepada institusional. Membership inilah yang sedang dipromosikan oleh semua orang untuk kita sama-sama mendapat manfaat. Okey, seterusnya ini merupakan aktiviti REAAA. Sudah tentu kita ada council member 2 kali setahun. Head of Road Authorities di mana kebanyakan ahli-ahli dalam REAAA merupakan badan-badan kerajaan yang memegang portfolio jalan. Jadi sudah tentu kita ada kesempatan untuk membincangkan Head of Road Authority di mana pada dekad yang lepas kita telah membincangkan ETC, Electronic Toll Collection yang dichampion oleh negara-negara maju pada masa tersebut. Dan sekarang kita senang nak kongsi knowledge tu, termasuklah MLFF yang juga dichampionkan oleh negara-negara maju dan kita sedang dapat benefit daripada pengetahuan tersebut untuk kita terjemahkan kepada aplikasi Malaysia. Seterusnya, REAAA juga membuat memorandum persefahaman bersama pihak IRF dan sebagainya. Dan juga ini adalah persidangan besar untuk REAAA setiap 4 tahun sekali dan next conference adalah pada tahun depan, mana kita menyertai persidangan ini, antaranya boleh mempamerkan teknologi-teknologi kita, produk-produk kita di peringkat antarabangsa dan juga pada tahun depan kita bercadang untuk merebut Katahira Award, iaitu kategori Young Writers, Young Engineers Writers di bawah umur 40 tahun. Saya ingin menjemput tuan-tuan semua yang berada di bawah umur 40 tahun, kita hantar paper dan kita kena rebut peluang ini mendapat anugerah Katahira. Selain itu juga kita REAAA juga mempromosikan Best Project Award di mana kita pernah memenangi salah satu projek di bawah CSR Package 4, mana kita menang kerana projek kita tu menyediakan lintasan untuk haiwan liar. Jadi di peringkat REAAA mereka sangat appreciate projek tersebut. Dan pada akan datang kita berharap lebih lama banyak projek lagi dapat kita masuk dan memenuhi anugerah berprestij ini. Selain itu, REAAA juga menyediakan forum bisnes di mana terdapat negara-negara yang mempromosikan peluang-peluang projek untuk kita masuk. Okay, next. Dan REAAA ini juga bagi setiap negara mendapat sokongan penuh daripada kementerian, menteri dan peringkat pengurusan tertinggi negara. Jadi sudah tentu salah satu peluang dia adalah opportunity untuk berjumpa dengan wakil-wakil negara tersebut. Okay, saya cerita tuan-tuan, saya ingin membawa kepada aktiviti seterusnya yang besar, iaitu 12 Malaysia Road Conference and Exhibition yang akan berlangsung di WTC Kuala Lumpur 5 hingga 7 November, dan seterusnya REAAA Conference yang akan diadakan di Goyang City, Seoul pada 26 hingga 31 Oktober pada tahun hadapan. Ini flyers, harap dapat save the date untuk kita berjumpa di WTC nanti, insyaAllah. Dan ini juga REAAA Conference Goyang City 2025 yang kerana Presiden orang Korea, so jadi end of the term tu dia akan laksanakan di conference tersebut di negara-negara tersebut. Okay, secara rumusannya, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian, RIM is the umbrella of engineering fraternity in Malaysia, di mana kita disokong kuat oleh Jabatan Kerja Raya, disokong kuat oleh Lembaga Lebuh Raya, Miros dan juga Kementerian Kerja Raya secara umumnya. Dan juga saya ingin highlightkan di sini, RIM ialah pintu kepada organisasi kejuruteraan jalan di peringkat antarabangsa, di mana kita merupakan ahli aktif dalam REAAA, kita juga ahli aktif dalam World Road Association, dan juga kita bukan member ahli yang rapat dengan International Road Federation. Jadi tuan-tuan dan puan-puan sekalian, tujuan kita berpersatuan adalah untuk berkongsi pengalaman, berkongsi ilmu untuk menjadikan industri jalan raya kita lebih baik. Jadi oleh itu, saya berharap tuan-tuan semua dapat menyumbang kepada industri jalan raya menerusi RIM secara langsung dan tidak langsung. Sekali lagi saya ingin ucapkan terima kasih atas peluang yang diberikan. Saya harap kita dapat jumpa lagi pada 12 Malaysia Road Conference di WTC nanti. Sekian, terima kasih.
Terima kasih atas talimat itu tadi. Majlis sekali lagi mempersilakan Yang Berbahagia Datuk Insinyur Sazali bin Harun, Ketua Pengarah Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia, untuk menyerahkan ceremata kepada Yang Berusia Tuan Insinyur Hamzah bin Hashim, Wakil Setiausaha Kehormat Road Engineering Association Malaysia. Ya, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, sekali lagi tepukan yang gemuruh buat Tuan Insinyur Hamzah bin Hashim atas taklimat pengenalan yang telah beliau sampaikan sebentar tadi. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, ladies and gentlemen, we will now proceed with our first presentations, but before that, let's hear a little bit of our next speaker's profile. Datuk Sri Idris Jalil is a world-renowned transformation guru in driving performance for both government and private sector through his Big Fast Result methodology. He is currently a chairman of Pemandu Associates, a multidisciplinary consultancy based in Kuala Lumpur that specialized in public sector transformation, business turnaround and strategic communication. In 2014, Bloomberg placed him amongst the top 10 most influential policymakers in the world under his leadership. Pemandu was also named as the top 20 most innovative government agency globally by Bloomberg Philanthropy and Nesta UK. Prior to Pemandu, Datuk Sri Idris was the CEO of Malaysia Airlines and held various senior positions in the Shell Group for 23 years. Datuk Sri Idris also lectures annually at Harvard University under the Harvard Ministerial Program, continuously sharing his secrets for effective transformation to ministers and CEOs worldwide today. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is an honor to invite Yang Berbahagia Datuk Sri Idris Jalil, President and CEO of Pemandu Association Malaysia, and Mr. Leon Yiman Jala to present on the topic 6 Secrets of Transformational Leadership. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. We're going to go right into it. We have been talking a lot about transformation today. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of big ideas to do as well. But what does transformation really mean? And this is something that my father and I have obsessed over for a long time. How do we not only define transformation, but how do we unlock the inner ability in all of us here to transform? To start, I want to propose that transformation is a yin and yang of being and doing. You know, my father and I, we argue that maybe between this, maybe I have a bit more of a bias towards transformation as being a bit more about the being, about the mindset, about the culture. Whereas my father, you know, he maybe tends more towards the doing. But true transformation and transformational leadership is the ability to harness both together. Because we believe that a transformational way of being informs a transformational way of doing. Transformation, every one of us here in this room has the capacity to transform, both a desire and a capacity. There are three key distinctives here. The first is that we all have a biological need, a biological desire to transform. We have this thing in our brains called the reticular activating system. What is this? This is essentially where we get the confirmation bias from. You know, you might have been in the market for a particular car, maybe an EV, as we were joking about earlier. And maybe as you're in the market for that car, you notice, or you seem to notice that there seems to be a lot of this car on the road. Actually, what's happening is there isn't more of that car on the road. What's happened is your reticular activating system has gone to work. Our brains are capable of completely rewiring, creating new neural pathways to inform our actions. So there's a biological need. We have the ability in our brains. Next, there's a psychological need as well. I'm sure some of you here will be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In this pyramid, we see that self-actualization is the top human desire. Our biggest human desire is to find fulfillment and to find purpose. And lastly, there's a spiritual and even theological desire. You know, in the Quran, it says, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. And as Christians in the Bible, it also says, be transformed first by the renewing of your mind. Today, we're going to go right into my dad's famous 6 secrets of transformational leadership. But before we go into that, I'd like to propose some helpful framing for today. And if this seems like a lot to take in, remember this, actually transformation can be bucketed into these 4 things. Transformation requires us to look in. Transformation requires us to then work outwards. Transformational leadership requires us to work around to see how we can rally those around us. And finally, transformational leadership is about looking up as well, acknowledging the things that are outside of our control. But without further ado, we're going to go into our conversation for today. Dad, let's talk about the first pillar, transformation looking in. And I think you have a very unique story to tell. Maybe in your case, quite a specific circumstance, which perhaps birthed that desire to transform. Can you tell us a little bit? And maybe you can start by telling us, what is this? And maybe specifically, who is this man here?
The guy on your left was my late father. That's his grandfather. He actually looked like that. And if you see the photograph on your right and look very closely at the photograph, you see some human skulls. My great ancestors, they were headhunters. Their hobby in life is to go to another village, chop the heads of those people, take their head as a trophy and bring it to the village and put it in the ceiling. I'm okay, by the way. I don't do that. So anyway, I grew up in the village. I grew up in that village. Man, I remember very clearly during the Indonesian confrontation, the British soldiers were in my village to help us against the Indonesians, the confrontation. And they were watching a movie, many movies, within the barbed wires. They put barbed wires there and they were watching the movie Elvis Presley. And I remember seeing the movie. Years later when I went to town at 15 years old, I thought when I first saw that movie, Elvis Presley was left-handed. You know why? Because we were watching the movie from the other side of the screen. And I was told the world beyond the mountain, it exists. The one we see in the movie. The only passport to see that world beyond the mountain was to pass the exams. So to me and my friends in that school, failing the exam was almost like life and death. Because if you don't pass your exams, you will never see the world beyond the mountain. So for me, education was transformational. It was absolutely key to pass the exam to see the world beyond the mountain. So the sense of adventure was there. So that's how I began to change my own paradigm, looking within myself to really then see the world beyond the mountain. I must be the best version of myself, passing the exams.
And I think to have that desire, maybe what you have not mentioned is the fact that the reason why you were so desperate to get out of the jungle is because maybe to add some color, in order for you to get to the nearest town for supplies, that would require up to about a 5-day walk through the jungle, isn't it?
You'll have to take from Barrio 1 week walk in the jungle and another week by boat to get to the nearest town. That is how hard life is. Today, of course, you can fly daily there. There is no highway to Barrio yet. And so, but nonetheless, we have planes that go there.
Yeah. So obviously, you have had a very unique circumstance, which maybe makes you a bit more predisposed to wanting to play the game of the impossible, to do impossible things, to that desire for transformation. But what can that desire for transformation look like in the rest of us who perhaps are in slightly more privileged and comfortable situations right now?
Yeah. Actually, it's quite simple. If you are normal, you don't live in Barrio, and you don't live at Tepat Percil, like Barrio, you can still do it. But you must raise your target until you say it is impossible to achieve based on the current way of doing it. So if you're putting up a sales target, let's say a ridership target for your highway, and you just want to increase it by 5%, you can achieve that without changing. But if you will say you want to increase the profitability of your toll highway by 50% in 1 year, then you cannot do business as usual. So in our language, what Leon and I talk about, the game of the impossible is to set a target that you yourself say you cannot achieve based on the current way of doing it. But it can only be achieved based on a new way how to do it. Because other people in the rest of the world can do it. And so we have to farm with a new way how to do it, to innovate. So the interesting thing was this guy called Usain Bolt. We invited him to Kuala Lumpur a few years ago, and I had dinner with him. He's a very shy man. And if you look at it, he does that, but he's actually a very shy individual. We invited him to talk like this. The question that was asked of him, Leon, was this: why, Mr. Bolt, what is going on in your mind when you said you want to be the fastest human being in the world? What drove you to do that? He said, I want to be the best version of myself. I want to get the best record in the world for 100 meters, 200 meters, that nobody will beat for a very, very long time. But for him to do that, he has to fundamentally change everything. Cannot do business as usual. There was one question asked of him. Mr. Bolt, what's going on in your mind when you're at the starting block of the 100 meters Olympics race? You know what his answer is? I am only thinking of what I'm going to eat tonight. Obviously, people ask him why. 9 months prior to the race, his diet is strictly controlled. He cannot just eat nasi lemak, Cannot just go and eat KFC. Every day the diet is controlled, new way of diet. His exercise regime is also controlled, exactly. His sleep pattern is exactly controlled. He cannot sleep later than 9 p.m. Must be before 9 p.m. No Netflix. So everything that you do has to change. That's how he became the fastest man on earth. And so in the context of what we are going to do for highways, if you want to revitalize your highway, you cannot do business as usual. You can have the best technology for MLFF, but if you continue to do business as usual in applying MLFF, it will not work. So there are fundamental things that you have to change.
Let's talk about some real examples now of how this has played out. I think let's begin with your time at Shell. How was that game of the impossible set, and what did that look like?
Yeah, when I was in Shell London, I had a really nice job. You recall, Leon, you used to study. Well. Leon used to study at Parkside School and then subsequently Leeds. And the training ground of the Chelsea Football Club was next to the school. And so every time, I'm a big fan of Chelsea Football Club, and my wife is as well, and my sons, they got no choice.
No choice, lah.
No choice. So we had a lovely house that Shell rented for us. You were studying next to the Chelsea Football Club. We had a house that we had 4 Italian gardeners who have our own private tennis court, all paid by Shell. And I said at that time, Leon, we shall never return to Malaysia. Unfortunately, my boss then said, Idris, I want you to go back to Malaysia. Shell Middle Distillates, we have a plant in Bintulu, lost money for 10 straight years. Every year lost money. I want you to go back to go and fix it. I remember coming back here to live in Taman Tun. Compared to Cobham, not so nice lah. But nonetheless, we came back. Everybody was defeated, Leon. Everybody in the company said this company cannot be fixed. They said, we will never make a profit. There was one Dutchman in the crowd. Any Dutch people here? None.
I think we're safe.
Okay, you were safe. They make very small bets. The Dutch guy called Hans said, Idris, if you make money, I'll give you 100 ringgit of profit. 100 ringgit of bet. In 6 months, he lost. Next slide, you can see.
Yeah, we actually have a picture of this. You asked him to write a letter as well.
Yeah, he wrote a letter, and he gave me the 100 ringgit. It's still framed in the hallway. So you can still see. Next slide, you can see we made, in the first 6 months, we made 10 million net profit after tax. The second year, we made 265 million net profit after tax. And then the third year, we made 509 million net profit after tax. In that year, Shell Middle Distillates, which is a plant in Bintulu, was the second among the top 2 most profitable company in the whole of Malaysia. Maxis in that year, based on return on investment, Maxis and Shell MDS were joint top, according to a study done by the Edge in the year 2005.
Yeah, let's bring it closer to home and maybe talk about your time in government doing the NTP.
Yeah, I remember when I became a minister, Dato Sri Najib, the PM, he called me to the office. He said, Idris, I want you to find private sector to invest money in Malaysia that we've never seen before. We have the 10 Malaysia plan that I would like us to see. Huge numbers, you can see the charts there. He said 115 billion ringgit I want to see per annum, private sector investment. Can you tell me what's the way how to do this? Tell me in 2 weeks' time. So in 1 week, I went to see him. Dato Sri, we can do it. But we have to change the way in which we do it. I want to gather 500 participants from the private sector together with the government, and we lock them in 12 rooms. We call them the labs, Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. In 8 weeks full time, tell me all the projects you intend to invest in this country, how much investments you're going to put in, how many jobs will you create. In 8 weeks, in 2010, we conducted that. 131 projects were confirmed by the private sector that were prepared to invest 406 billion US dollars. In ringgit, it was 1.4 trillion ringgit of investment, creating 3.3 million jobs. In fact, it was phenomenal. This is the reason why Bloomberg put me among the top 10 most influential policymakers. In the year 2014, I went to see them. Thank you. When I went to see Bloomberg, I asked them, why did you put me among the top 10 most influential policymakers in the world? Why not Obama? And the response was quite curt. He said, Idris, in case it gets into your head, we're not actually impressed with you. We're impressed with the methodology, the method that's used. Because you use a method called the lab, you gathered the private sector and the government to work together to make sure you have massive investments. Never before in the history of Malaysia, in 8 weeks, did we convince the private sector to invest 1.4 trillion ringgit into the economy. And you can see the next slide. As a result of that, in the next slide, you can see the investment numbers actually grew very rapidly. In fact, 2.2 times increase in private sector investment compared to the 5 years prior to the economic transformation program.
Let's also do a bit of free consulting here. I think you have put together some initial thoughts on what this game of impossible could look like for toll operators, for toll highways.
Yeah, I think the key here is that if I ask the question, what is the game of impossible for highway concessions in Malaysia? I can tell you, already listening to the KSU earlier on, he already put up the chart. Who is number one, who is number two, who is number three in the world in the road quality ranking. If you want to do a game of the impossible, what can Malaysia do to jump, leapfrog, to be there among the top two? Number one was Singapore. Number two was the Netherlands. To want to be there and displace one of them. That to me is the game of the impossible. There are many things you got to deal with. You got to deal with fast mobility, so you cannot have traffic jams on the highway. You must have increase of transport of goods and services as a result of doing it. But you can have big vehicles that are using it, but they cannot be hogging the fast lanes. You can see today on the highway, so many of them are causing the traffic jam because there's no discipline. Tourism, we need to bring tourists. Nobody wants to go to Malacca as a tourist, knowing you can be stuck in a traffic jam for 4 hours on Chinese New Year, on eve of Chinese New Year. You cannot do that. You have to find different ways to do it. But ladies and gentlemen, you cannot do this until you can convince the government with empirical data what it has to do to make sure that they stick to the agreement. I can assure you, there are lots of politics associated with increasing toll rates. All of the agreements that you have today, there is an escalation clause for increasing on an annual basis the toll rates. But the government does not want to do it. There's a huge political risk associated with doing it. So it's very tough. But to convince them to do that, it requires tremendous empirical data. I will talk about that a little later, but I can tell you it can be done, but you cannot just do it by praying for it to happen. You have to put the evidence to prove clearly. One of the data that's important is to show to the government, the public perception is that the highways are printing money. Actually, the reality is many of the highway concessions actually lose money. Many. But the public requires to be convinced this is true. But they wouldn't know until you can open your shirt and show them that you actually lose money. They take one or two, maybe plus can make money and a few others, but quite a number of them are struggling. And so it's very important to win this debate with data and empirical research by independent bodies.
Yeah, and I think that brings us to the importance of the second step. So the second secret is to anchor on a true north. And why do we say this is important? There's lots of interest to manage. We have public perception. We have governments as well to manage. Shareholders for the operators. A lot of opinions. How do we then define and prioritize what matters? And this is where we talk about the true north. Because if you're very clear on what your true north is, that gives you a basis for which to prioritize what matters, as well as deprioritize what doesn't matter. Maybe you can quickly talk to us about how this played out in your time at MAS. Very public role.
Yeah, MAS was a very strange story. This is a photograph of me on the first day I was at work. And I look a little younger then. I remember in my first town hall meeting, the people in Malaysia Airlines said MAS stands for Mati Anak Sarawak. Because this guy, I worked for Shell for 23 years. I have never worked in aviation before. They said we have only 2.5 months of cash. If we didn't transform the organization in 2.5 months, there's no money for salary, no money for fuel. So Mati Anak Sarawak. I told them MAS stands for Masalah Akan Selesai. You have to show confidence. So the first thing that I did something that no airline in the world do, even to this day. I decided to do the impossible. I told Tengku Azmil, who was my CFO, Azmil, I want you and your team in finance to take last year's P&L break them down into individual flights. In a year, we have 110,000 flights per year. I said I wanted to have profit and loss statement for every individual flight. So when the flight leaves Kuala Lumpur and arrives in London Heathrow, within 1 hour, I want to know how much money we made or lost on that flight. He nearly fell off his chair. But I said, no, Azmil, you got to do it. So they did it. After we finished doing this, so we had 110,000 profit and loss statement. We gathered all the top people in Malaysia Airlines, from marketing to sales to IT to engineering to fleet operation, and put to airport, everybody stuck in the room. We conducted altogether 8 laboratories concurrently. I told them, this is the flight P&L. Look at it. Why we're losing money? Find answers. You know what? They were so smart, they found the answers. Every day, the same 2 flights going to London was making money. Every day, the same 2 flights was losing money. The losses from the 2 that lose money was greater than the ones that were making money. So we lost 20 million ringgit flying to London. What was the solution? Get rid of those 2 flights. And the very next day, we were profitable. We didn't change the nasi lemak, we didn't change the uniform, we didn't change the seat, nothing changed. We didn't change the fare also, sama juga. And what else did we discover? We found out that we were losing money flying from Kuala Lumpur to Adelaide, flying to Sydney, to Perth. And then when we looked at it, the reason why we lost money was the flights that were coming from Europe, from London to the Netherlands, over here, by the time they arrived KL, the flights going to Australia have already departed. We asked a scheduler, why did you have that? Because she was prioritizing the flights coming from the Middle East. She thought it was higher yield. What is the solution? Reschedule. Itu saja. Make money already. And we were losing money flying to Manchester. To break even flying from Kuala Lumpur to Manchester, we had only 40% seat factor, not enough passengers. To break even, we need a load factor at the same fare, 140% increase in the fare, seat. We need 140% passengers. That means fill all the seats, take another 40% more passengers, tie them on the wings of the aircraft to fly to Manchester. Then only break even. So we got rid of that. We got rid of Cairo, we got rid of Frankfurt. And that we did, we found we were making so much money from Kuala Lumpur to Hong Kong, to Japan, to Thailand, not enough planes. What do? When you cut the routes that are not making money, you divert the planes there. That's why we made record profit when I was there. We made the highest profit in 60-year history when we were there. Even when oil prices reached $100 a barrel in the year 2010, we were among the only 2% of the airlines in the world that made profit. Even when it was $100 a barrel, MAS still made a profit. But you got to find details. My take today is that how many concessions are there in Malaysia? 33. Okay, I did the maths. I can see if I can remember. So if you have 33 concessions, let's say if you want to, just an argument, from Tropicana where I live, I want to go to Bentong. That route alone, you have to go 3 tolls. You pay 3 tolls. The first one is Damansara Plaza toll. The second one is the Gombak toll. The third one is the Bentong toll. So that means there are 3 segments, The first segment, that should be a different kind of rate because you're losing money there, maybe the one is sure make money. The second one, different rates. Then you can have 4 different types of fare. The super peak, the peak, the average, and the very low. So they mean 4 different fare rates. So if you do that, altogether, that means 33 highway concession multiplied by 3 segments that I put before, multiplied by 4 toll categories, you are already having 396 different segmentation. You should produce profit and loss for 396. You should then do dynamic pricing. I can tell you this, when I was in Malaysia Airlines, would you believe this? I was running an airline. To make any change in our fare, I need to go and ask permission from the Ministry of Transport. And I was competing with Tony Fernandez. And he can change his pricing every hour. By the time I get the approval from Ministry of Transport for our fare, that's 3 months later. So I lose money. So I then told them, I cannot compete if you tell me I cannot control my fare. We need to go into dynamic pricing. And so we went into dynamic pricing. My suggestion today is that if you are very clear about your segmentation for every segment, that means from Tropicana up to the Damansara toll, that's one P&L. From the Damansara toll to Gombak, that's another profit and loss statement. From Gombak Plaza to the Bentong toll, that's another segment. And you will know which one is making money, which one losing money. You can make changes in your fare depending on peak period and lean period. And then you can tell the government, the public can choose if they want to pay less toll, they don't go during the peak period. So they can make changes. That's why you can fly cheaply under Malaysia Airlines. Depends. If you want to fly prior to the eve of Christmas, you pay through your nose. So dynamic pricing is a way how to go and do it. So very, very important to go and think about it in those ways. But if you do business as usual, the same rates that you have per kilometer, tak boleh lah. Then you are going to back again and again, no political will to go and do it. You have to innovate and find entirely different way how to do it. But you must be clear about your true north measure.
Yeah, so a true north gives us then the basis to make these decisions, sometimes difficult decisions. But now, we've spent time talking about the first two principles, which are more about mindset shift, having that paradigm shift. Now let's go into the second pillar, which is ultimately how do we then have a bias towards action? So we believe that transformational leadership, while it begins with the mind, it then needs to move to be outward focused. How can we then produce tangible results, but also tangible systems and processes and even habits that will help orient us towards that outcome? Let's talk about the lab. That this is what you are very famous for, something that you have practiced through your time at Shell, MAS as well, as Pemandu as well. What does this involve? It's a very rigorous process. Maybe give us, add some color to this.
Yeah. I want to bring it closer to home. We have so many challenges in doing reforms when it comes to highway. We agree the principle at the high level, 30,000 feet. Everybody say MLFF is good. But when we get down to implementing it, it becomes problematic. Because we have not worked out the details. The devil is in the detail. So when I use labs, I bring in all the parties that are involved inside the lab so that the input is very rich. From a technology standpoint, from a public standpoint, from a government fiscal standpoint, and everything put together, from a safety, from quality, put all together, then only you find solutions to it. So the reason why I do this is a lab is good because you put all the parties involved to come together so that they find the answers. You cannot find an answer if you only have one or two group of people that dream the answer. You need to get everybody to come together and find the answers. And if you do it, I guarantee you in 6 weeks, you can find the answers. You can find the answers. You remember before I joined the ministry, the government, people were talking about having MRT for the longest time. It couldn't happen. Everybody argued that you cannot put tunnels underneath Kuala Lumpur because the building will collapse. And the argument was, we have clastic limestones underneath there. We ran a lab in 2010. 6 weeks it was. And we concluded it can be done. And everybody said, oh, how are we going to pay for this? It was very simple. We must reduce subsidies. And if we reduce subsidies, it can happen. That's why we remove the ceiling for RON 97. In my time we were there. We were doing all sorts of things to go and do it. We removed the subsidy for sugar. We did many different things. And if we do that, we can fund it. That's why we said we will introduce GST. Because when we introduced GST at 6%, that gave us altogether a total revenue of 30 billion ringgit. 30 billion ringgit is a lot of money, yeah? If you do GST at 10%, which is what ASEAN average rate of GST is, it will give Malaysia 55 billion ringgit a year. Bob Marley says, no woman, no cry. No money, no talk. So you must have money. So the lab brings the level of detail so that we don't have high-level ideas of good things. We must bring it down to the level of detail.
Let's go to an example that I think is quite apt for this context, which is some of the engagements in Russia, specifically our road transformation lab that was done there. And you have this thing called the watermelon effect. We didn't eat watermelons at the lab, but maybe you can give us some examples of what do we mean by this?
A bit of digression. I was invited to go to Kremlin to speak to the whole cabinet there. And they gave me a date that I could not meet. Because if I take any flight, commercial flight, by the time I reach Moscow, I would have missed the Kremlin session. So I told them, I'm sorry, I cannot make it because of this. But they sent a Russian jet. They sent a jet to arrive at Subang. So I told your mom, I'm sitting alone together with my special officer, Nick, his name at that time. Could you join us? So by the time we arrived there, they gave me a challenge. He said, Idris, can you and your team help us, he said, to deal with a conflict that we have. They have 70 states, they call them province or regions in the whole of Russia, 70. They have presidents for every single one of them. They could not agree over 10 years which road, which highway is priority over another. The ones they build, all the ones that are within Moscow and St. Petersburg. The ones in the outskirts, they didn't agree. He said, can you use the lab methodology so that we all agree what is the plan for the next 10 years? He said, sure. So we actually ran the labs. We ran the labs in Moscow. And I'm very proud because all of the guys in my team were Malaysians. And we were facilitating that work. 6 weeks, after 6 weeks, they agreed. How did we make them agree? Just like KSU, Dato Sri mentioned earlier on, the ranking. There were specific areas. So I told them, before we quarrel about which road is priority, let's agree the criteria first. The first criteria, do you agree, the number of people that will benefit from that highway. Is that important? Oh yes, very important. Number 2, the cost per kilometer for the highway, is that important? Oh, yes. Then what else is important? Oh, safety important, they said. If one particular road has a lot of people, fatalities, then we must build a highway there because, so what else is there? They said, no. There's only 3 things. The number of people, the cost, and the safety associated with it. Those are the 3. Then they said, yeah, but I think we should put weightage to it. We agree the weights. Then I said, fine, you give us the data for the numbers of people that benefit for each of those roads and the cost per kilometer and the safety data, then we'll do the ranking. So when we did the ranking, from all the roads for the 70, we told them, then they started to argue. Oh yeah, my road is more important. But you agree the ranking. We use this ranking, yours is number 60. It's not number 1. We did say to them, Mr. Shovalov, who is the Deputy Prime Minister, he said, okay, I agree with Idris. So if you are number 60, if you want to jump to number 5, you can get it by going and see Putin. Then I will keep quiet. So when we were doing this, I told them, how do we make sure that will be implemented? They will implement it according to the plan. So I told them that you must have a dashboard. In a dashboard, every week, people who are going to do it, you must know who has done it for that week. If you haven't done it, on the dashboard, it must come as red color. If you have done it, it's green. If you haven't done, it's red. If it's green. But if you only done half of it, it's yellow. You know what Mr. Sokolov said? He is the Deputy Prime Minister. By the way, they have 7 DPM in Russia, 7, not 1, not 2. Malaysia got 2. They have 7. Mr. Sokolov was number 1. He said, Mr. Jala, we cannot use this traffic light here in Russia. Why? Because of watermelon phenomenon. It means, he said, green outside but red inside. You cannot go and tell Putin, I didn't do it. Because you do it, you get deleted. So, at best, he said, if it's green outside, watermelon phenomenon, yellow inside. But never, you cannot have any other color.
So how do you curb that?
So the way in which we curb it, every year you must audit the results. Jangan tipu, you must have an external validation of the results. So if you do that, people will make sure they don't cheat you. Every week when you do it, at the end of the year, they know it's going to be validated and externally, then they cannot cheat. It's very important to do that. So I would say in implementation, for discipline, you must have a system that will measure it, and you must know it on a weekly basis. Don't measure it on a quarterly basis, every week. So you know who has done it for the week. And then only you can do it, as Dato Sri Ahmad Mazlan was saying, that's how they did it in India. If you can achieve and build it within record speed, I can assure you they probably have a dashboard on a daily basis. That is what is required, fundamental change in approach.
How do you think that this can play out here then in this current context?
Yeah, over here, you really must have discipline. Leadership must have discipline of action. I remember I was making a comment to Dato Sri Ahmad Mazlan. He said, you know, the PH manifesto, promise number 6, in page 27, it says abolish tolls. Of course, when they became government, it was obvious it cannot be done, because Ahmad Mazlan on Parliament, he said, to go and buy out the toll highways, it cost the government 450 billion ringgit. The total annual budget for last year alone for the whole country was 393 billion ringgit. So he is right. So if you want to buy them out, that's the kind of money that's required. That's why when Tun Mahathir became Mahathir Mark II, he was quick to say it cannot be done. So I think in life, if you promise something, you must deliver. If you want to have discipline of action in highways, in everything you do, once you promise it, you must have the discipline to go and execute and implement it. So the broken promises is that you already know that it cannot be done if you can't do business as usual. But frankly speaking, if you ask me today, is it impossible to make sure that we can have toll-free highways? Of course we can do it if you want to. But you know why? You have to pay tax. All the countries in the world that have toll-free, they bayar banyak tax. Problem with Malaysia is we want the best highways, but we don't want to pay. What happened to Africa? They don't want to pay tolls. Most of the African countries, because they don't want to pay tolls, there's no highway. So in Tanzania, their capital city is called Dodoma. But most people living in Dar es Salaam. What happened to the parliamentarian? Every single day for 60 years since independence, they drive for 7 hours on a dirt road from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma. No highway. Why no highway? People don't want to pay toll. Government doesn't have money. So if you don't do that, that's what problem. We have 5 kilometers of highways in this country, only 3,000 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers, only 3,000 of them are toll-free. 2,000 of them are tolls. But you can do it, but you have to pay. So if we are not prepared to increase our taxes, GST, we cannot do GST, then cannot. I already told you, GST at 10%, 55 billion ringgit. You know what GST, VAT, they call it in UK, 20%. What is the VAT for Tanzania? 19%. What's the VAT for all of Africa today? Average 16%, 1/6. So today, if we want to have toll-free highways, pay tax. That's the only way to do it. No money, no talk. So I am going to say here, no money, no cry. No woman, no cry. So it's important for us, if we want to fulfill our promises, you must find the money. It can be found. GST, remove subsidy.
Yeah. You know, you can have all of these things in place, but ultimately, if you aren't able to have the leadership to rally those around you, and this includes both managing upwards as well as managing downwards to all of your stakeholders, your teams, you're not going to get very far. Which brings us to the next concept, which is this idea that transformation needs to look around us. You know, the only way to scale transformation is recognizing that transformation can only scale at the rate in which we both develop but also communicate clearly to our teams, our shareholders, our stakeholders, and our rakyat as well. We have this practice, which is our fourth secret of situational leadership. Now, situational leadership, the basic idea here is that if we look at this chart, as we observe our team starting to rise in competency, the art of situational leadership is knowing when to discern, when to move from when to move from a directive style of leadership to a more empowering style of leadership. So we often say, oh, I am a directive leader, or I'm an empowering leader. Actually, the truth is we need to learn how to be ambidextrous in this. Do you want to share a little bit about maybe some thoughts on how this can probably play out in our context here?
Okay. You see, this idea of situational leadership is not my idea. It's Ken Blanchard. If you Google it, Ken Blanchard, situational leadership, you have a lot of material there. But the Ken Blanchard model is saying when you start a new journey, your leadership style must be directive. You cannot have too much empowerment in the start of the journey. And let me give the example. Today, I'm sorry to say, we currently have 4 options. You go to the toll plaza, you have the cash option, you have touch and go, you have smart tag, you have the RFID, tabulela, like this. You cannot have fast. And I regularly go up to Bentong. I can see this is not a way how to do it. But, you know, it's very difficult to move, to go and do it. I would suggest today, we have to really think about the leadership, our Prime Minister, a Minister of Transport, and the government must have the political will to go and take the unpopular decisions to move from 4 options to 2 and then to 1. Move, for example, to say, okay, today I'm going to tell you directive style of leadership. We cannot have 4 options like that. Because you can see, I remember when I drive to Bentong last week, you can see the RFID, there's so very few cars are using it. But everybody's clogged on the smart tag and also the other ones. But one lane is now not underutilized. So I think we have to move out very quickly to just a cash and then RFID. Get rid of touch and go and get rid of smart. But people will be marah. People are not angry. People angry. So Malaysians memang marah punya orang. So you go back to the earlier slide. The earlier slide, it says, when you start any transformation journey, you move from phase 1, stage 1, to phase 2. It's called dissatisfaction stage. If you want to transform, you must be prepared to go to phase 2. If you want to transform and you don't have phase 2, then it cannot happen. Because there's no gain without pain. You must go through this. So your job in leadership is to explain to people why you have moved from 4 options to 2 and then to 1. And you explain to them. Do not expect them to clap hands because nobody will clap hands. They will allow you to do it because you've explained it to them, but they will not clap hands. I lectured twice at Harvard, at the Harvard Ministerial Review. In fact, I should be in Boston right now. I'm on leave, so I'm not doing it since 2014. There's one professor.
We chose this over Boston, so
Yeah.
this is a
More
testament
important.
to how important we think this is.
So there's one lecturer, his name is Marty Linsky, Professor Marty Linsky. He says this: transformational leadership is about disappointing people at the rate they will allow you to. So that means you explain to them why you have to move from 4 options to 2 options to 1 within 2 years. And they will understand it, but they will not clap hands. So if you expect them to clap hands, you will never do it. So the approach must be directive style. You cannot be, consensual lah, dengar inilah. You cannot, you must go and do it. And that's why it's very important to have the political will to go and execute this despite the challenges lah.
So what does it look like when we move to the empowering phase?
Empowering phase is the one I call about to empower the concessionaires to implement dynamic pricing. I already told you, when I was CEO of Malaysia Airlines, I was not empowered to change the fares because it was controlled by the Ministry of Transport, how to compete. So if the government allows the 33 concessionaires to use big data, ridership data, you can actually implement this. I can assure you can. Super peak hours, the peak hours, the normal hours, and the lean hours. And they have many different rates. Super high tolls, normal tolls, and low tolls. And you can do this, and you can run it this way. And you will find there's much greater acceptance from people because you have many different variations of rates. For every single one of them for the segment, the 396 segments that I talked about before, 33 concessionaires multiplied by 3 different segments, multiplied by 4 different toll categories. That's how you derive at the 396 and do the maths. So if you do this, you start empowering the concessionaires. So what else do you do? Get feedback lah. So if public are happy with it, they make money, that's win-win. So I think it's high time you guys have a different attitude doing this. If I were you, if I'm Reem, the gentleman, you just now, you should champion this idea, gather everybody to come out with a very simple algorithm to go and do dynamic pricing. I can tell you, in the airlines, there are only 2 systems called revenue system, PROS or MX, PROS and MX. Half of the airline use the other one. The algorithm are very, very concrete, very specific. You cannot manually do it because every hour we change fares. If you imagine you can change your toll rates every hour, every segment, that's how you do dynamic pricing. So returning back to the point, if you want to do empowering style, you put the parameters very clear, and then you allow the private sector, the concessionaires, to do dynamic pricing. Then you have the best of both worlds. You have low fares, you have high fares, and the public also happy with it. Otherwise, you have the standard rates, tak boleh lah.
Yes, and so underpinning all this is also the next secret, and this is still within the category of working around, which is winning coalitions. And I really like what Datuk Sri shared earlier, the quote by Henry Ford, that if we all work together, ultimately everything else falls in place. And I think that is very much the ethos here as well, in terms of winning coalitions, forging winning coalitions. What are your suggestions for, what this could look like here?
The key here is this. You will
It's not
never,
an easy thing to do.
You cannot do a highway revitalization unless in leadership in government in particular, and plus in the concessionaires, that win coalition with the public. The Prime Minister, you must, and the Deputy Prime Minister, active engagement to win, to get the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister to be on board with the idea that you intend to do. And the Ministry of Works, they must be on board with the idea. Ministry of Finance must be on board with the idea. The media must be on board, because today you're losing the public opinion. The story is that you guys are printing money. Nobody know that you are losing money, you know. If I can tell you, maybe 1/3 of you make money, 1/3 of you just about 1/3 of you losing money. That's what I think it was. When we did the data, it was a lady, you were in the subsidy lab. We did the lab on subsidy when I was in government. I know exactly who makes money, who lose money, because we had the data at that time. So when you start to do that, you must win that. The state is very important, because if the states are not convinced with what you intend to do on expansion, you don't get the development order to build. So the states and federal government come together. Political parties need to be engaged so that they buy in the story. External advocates, universities, parties who are doing research to make sure that this is done. Independent comparative studies to see how they do it in Spain, how do we do in Germany, how they do all this in Singapore. In Singapore, by the way, you don't pay tolls on a Sunday, because dynamic pricing, that's how they do it. So you must do an independent comparative research on the best practice. Only when you can do it, then you can convince everybody. This has to be done properly. Winning coalition is winning people through hearts and mind, using data and emotion. Get them to be on board on your side. Only then you can revitalize the industry. You cannot revitalize the industry based on the current way of doing it. By the way, technology alone cannot solve the problem. You can bring the most chunky system in place. It cannot be done without winning coalition. It's absolutely essential to go and do this.
Lastly, let's talk about the sixth secret. This is sometimes a bit more of a contentious one. Divine intervention.
Yeah.
Is this a cop-out, a leadership cop-out for allowances for things that can't maybe be achieved?
By the way, they don't teach this in Harvard. I was a visiting lecturer for 1 year at the Blavatnik School in Oxford. And when I talk about this, they all look at me and say, what is he talking about? The reason why I talk about divine intervention is, if you don't believe me, take a piece of paper tonight. Write down 10 of the most important things that happen in your personal life. And ask the question, did each of these happen the way they did? Because you caused it to happen. If the answer is yes, put a tick. If the answer is no, put an X, count them. 70% of what's on my sheet had nothing to do with me. I didn't apply to go to Malaysia Airlines. I didn't apply to go to government. I didn't apply to go to Sri Lanka. The jobs came to me, you know. So many things are outside our control. In leadership, Leon, it's very important for leaders to recognize the world is not at their feet. We don't control the world. We were rudely reminded, the whole world, rudely reminded of this fact in 2020 when COVID-19 came. Everybody was on their knees. Whether you're president of America, the virus did not care. We were all on our knees. We cannot control it. And the other one is, life is a continuous reduction of option. You remember when you were young, I remember, Leon, when you were young, I asked you in the morning, what's your ambition? You want to be a rock star. In the afternoon, you say you want to be an engineer. In the evening, you say you want to be a musician or a drama king or something like that. But you know, and you weren't very good in mathematics for a while. Then you say you don't want to be a medical doctor. I mean, all of us. If you're not good in maths, you can't be an engineer, you can't be I don't know what pulling teeth is to do with maths, but you cannot even be a dentist also. When you go to university, they tell you, you take only 1 degree, you cannot sit for 10 degrees. When you graduate also, you cannot work for Maybank and you cannot work for CIMB at the same time. Option reduced. When you get married, also option reduced. Everything option reduced. So life is very tough when you're 70% outside your control and life is a continuous reduction of option. It's a terrible world, isn't it? But now the question is, who is in charge of life? Some of you may call it God. Some of you call it luck. Some of you will call it fate. If you go to Lilian too, it's feng shui. It doesn't matter where you come from. In leadership, we must be humble enough to know that the world is not at our feet. Humility is a very important virtue in leadership. And because of that, it's important for us to then, if we are spiritual, you better pray. Pray to God and be a good human being. If we're a good human being, do the ethical things, and we reflect and make correction for ourselves. And only when you can start doing those things, then only good things will come. It's very, very important. And the key here is that if you fail to achieve your game, the impossible, because you realize that the world is not your feet, don't shoot yourself. If your staff have done their best and they don't achieve it, don't shoot them. The only thing you ask of yourself and your staff is that they do their best. Results is not guaranteed. So in leadership, this idea of humility as a virtue is a very important idea in leadership. Humility is a very important aspect of transformational leadership.
Very good. Well, that wraps up our discussion. I think the real value in these sessions is Q&A, to be able to take in questions. So I think if we've still got time for that, we'd love to engage in some Q&A.
Any questions? Are there any mics around?
We have a roaming mic.
Are there a roaming
over
mic?
there.
Yes, we got one here. Mike.
Hi, Dato' Sri. My name is Syed Muhammad Aidid. I'm with the West Coast Expressway. I think we all are pretty quiet here because a lot of what you say is what's been in our mind and in our hearts. But transformational leadership needs a bigger push from all of us. So I think where we're coming from is the other part of transforming is how do we break out of our current habit? That is the big question, that we've been running the highway business in such way. The policies that, we adhere to have been set in stones. And more importantly, we always try to do the best for the users, the highway customers. And it's always never enough. And as you said, you have to disappoint them to move forward. So that is the big gap that we need to learn how to jump across. That's my question. How do we do it?
Well, the most important thing, step one, that all of you need to do is to produce your segmented profit and loss statement for every segment. I can tell you why is that so important. When I was in Malaysia Airlines, when I wanted to do many things, the government really didn't believe me. They think that we didn't do our job. But when we produced a segmented P&L flight by flight, then only they understood it. So I think you must win the public perception that you're not actually printing money. That is the key. If you don't do segmented P&L, they wouldn't know. They just think that, well, you all are making money. So once you've done that, then you start using the empirical data to prove that they actually it's not as easy as people are doing. Because you have to spend money every year on maintaining the highways, putting new technologies onto it. Repair and maintenance is actually a very tough thing. So the first thing to do is segment your P&L if I were you. After you've done that, if I own a concessionaire, I've done a segmentation. Every segment I have a P&L. I gather my team to go and look at every single one in 6 weeks. 6 weeks finding the answer. The answers to be found in each of the segments, let me say this. The treatment to your solution for each segment is to be found in the disease through the lens of the segmented P&L. So you must produce a segmented P&L and gather a team in your concessions from your marketing, your sales, to the network, operations people, and IT and HR. Find the answers in 6 weeks. I can guarantee you, you will find them. We ran a lab for a company, a furniture company in London. Lost money, yeah? So I told them, I don't even need to go to London. Can you give us your data, sales data? We sit here in Kuala Lumpur, we did it for 3 weeks. We sent it to them. It was obvious when we did it. We did profit and loss statement for the furniture company. 5,000 profit and loss statement. Every SKU is a P&L. Which P&L lose the most money? Dustbins. Dustbin P&L lost money because the cost to put, they were not selling the dustbin, so the warehousing cost was lumbered onto the dustbin. We said, why are you keeping this SKU in the SKU? Get rid of it. And so there were parts of the business that were so profitable, but they had no idea why was Proton making so much losses. When I was asked to go there, I had a team when I was a minister. Proton wanted to borrow 1.5 billion ringgit from the government. We agreed that we will give them 1.5 billion as bailout, as a loan, on condition that they do 2 things. That I turn up, I was the chairman, I have many people, Tan Sri Azman, Yahya, and a few others there. We turn up at Proton and asking them to do a few things to beautify themselves. Like yourself lah. We asked them to do a segmented P&L to beautify themselves, and then marry. That's how Jilly came in. And so, in the beginning, they didn't want to do the segmented P&L. I said, if you don't do a segmented P&L, I go back lah. We don't give you the 1.5 billion because we were giving them 100 million, 100 million, 100 million, but they must do certain things. The first time they did the segmented P&L, can you tell me which of the car model made the most money? Any idea? Which model? Saga, wrong. Wira, wrong. They were shocked too. Which one makes the most money? Exora. 70% of their assembly line was to produce Saga. And they was losing money. So if you don't know which one is making money, surely you make the wrong decisions. That's why when Geely bought them, what is the model of car that Geely produced? X70. Because that's the most profitable segment. So I think the key here is that if you want to really make sure your concessionaires actually make money and then use that money to improve the quality of your service and reduce accidents, you got to really, really look at the segmentation of your P&L. That's where the answer lies. Now, I'm not here to convince you how to do business differently. I'm saying that you said if you want to achieve the game, the impossible, you have to find a new way how to do it. The old way tak boleh jalan lah. Boleh ya? Step number 1, do the segmented P&L. Step number 2, get your team to go and do the work in 6 weeks, find the answers. Step number 3, go and convince the government using the data. After convince the government, step number 4, make sure you win the public debate in the social media to convince the public that you got to do this. Because if you say 1/3 of the highways are actually losing money, they don't know that. Publish it. Put the data on the table, then only they know. I mean, you got to think creatively, like, cannot be the old way how to do
the
it.
Stratcoms is actually very important here.
Yeah.
And I think going back to your point on doing your segmented P&L, that granular level of analysis and data is what will help you in your communications to not be swept by rhetoric. You know, it's very easy to fall into the trap of debating on the basis of rhetoric. But I think when we do that, it detracts from what the true north is. So I think if we're clear on the true north, if we have the granular data to back it up, we hold firm and we essentially frame the narrative and the conversation around it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like what you did with MAS. So the non-profitable routes, you cut. Does it mean that if we discover that some of our intersections are non-profitable, we shut them down?
No. I said something about the last resort. I can tell you, remember I said reschedule. Remember we didn't cut out the Australian routes. We reschedule the flights. And so the last resort is the one we cut out, last resort. But you don't cut out highways. It's already there. How to cut out? The highway is already there. You must continue lah. So the only way you can do this is to then figure out and work with the government a method that will make it fair and square for both parties. How to do it. That means give you another highway concession somewhere that make money so you can cross-subsidize it. Finding solution lah. We all clever people lah. Dynamic pricing is the answer in my view. Certain segments, if you have the Tropicana to Bentong, you have 3 segments. Which one makes money? You make money from Tropicana all the way to the Damansara toll. Maybe you're making some money from that toll to Gombak, but you lose money from Gombak to the Bentong toll. So the Bentong toll is subsidized by the first segment and the second segment, done already. So that's why today it's so important to have all the 3 segments, different P&L. You cross-subsidize one segment from the other segment. This is the key. And that is how you will do it. If you don't understand this, you cannot do it. By the way, my team and I, we have a consultancy unit lah. If you don't know how to do, we are available to help you lah. We know how to do lah. Ada lagi kah? I know we're standing in between you and your lunch lah. Going once? Ada lagi? Going twice?
Sold. Thank you very
Sold.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Idris Jala and Mr. Leon Yiman Jala for the insightful sharing. We would like now to invite our guest of honor, Datuk Seri Azman bin Ibrahim, Secretary General Ministry of Work, to present a token of appreciation to the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big round of applause to Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Idris Jala and Mr. Leon Yiman Jala. Thank you so much. Thank you, Datuk Seri Azman bin Ibrahim. And up next, we have a presentation by Engineer Muhammad Shahrir Amin bin Ahmad, Director of Operation Monitoring Division. But before that, let's take a moment to hear about his career background. Engineer Shahrir Amin joined the Malaysia Highway Authority (MHA) in 1999, and since then has worked on various positions within the agency related to the highway infrastructure sector, such as construction project management, technical development policy and expressway planning policy. Currently, he serves as Director of Operation Monitoring Division and oversee the operation of rapidly expanding highway network in Malaysia on the topic assets and methodology versus aging and longevity, action to revitalize. Please welcome Engineer Muhammad Shahrir Amin Ahmad, Director Operation Monitoring Division, Malaysia Highway Authority.
Okay, thank you everybody. I've been warned by organization. Actually, my time very lean. My presentation will be lean and will be clean. So, today I would like to present about the asset methodology versus aging and longevity. Actually, I would like to do some exercise over here, but been mentioned, my time very limited, so I will abort that. So we go to straight to our presentation. Okay, this never mind, this is a normal practice here. Okay, next, can please start the video. So this video actually analogy video that relating what I present.
Which refers to age related. Your muscles will gradually decrease in mass and strength. That is why it is very, very, very crucial for older adults to incorporate a strength training program into their routine. So if you find yourself in the middle picture, okay, you can certainly increase your muscle mass through exercises, weight training, and avoiding a sedentary lifestyle in general. All right. So again, here's another good example of sarcopenia. Consider a 24-year-old individual, a 66-year-old sedentary man, and a 66-year-old man. If you're going to observe the difference between the middle picture and this picture, just staying active can significantly increase your muscle mass.
Sorry about that. Maybe something with the computer. Okay, next, actually, what I can try about the aging, we will try to mention this introduction in 1980. Highway will be introduced by our Prime Minister before, Tun Mahathir, in 1980s, and we established Malaysian Highway Authority. And in 1988, there are Malaysian privatized model highway development and for the management for the start for the plus. Okay, this I have to never mention this. This one supposed to be mentioned by Datuk Sri KSU before. Okay, we go straight. So okay, did you realize our highway, about 33 highways, actually you can see here, 0 to 5 years we have 4 numbers, 6 to 10 years we have 1 numbers, 11 to 15 years we have 7 numbers, next we have 15 to 20 years, yeah, about 6 numbers, 20, 25, 7 numbers, and 26 to 30 years have 7 numbers. And then the last one, at least 36 to 40 years is 1 number. Do you realize which one this? Anybody? 36 to 40 years. So actually this one, JPP 1, Jambatan Pulau Pinang, will be established in 1985. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, this also mentioned by Datuk Sri before, our Datuk Sri KSU. Yeah, we are second best in Southeast Asia. Second out of 11. We have 21st in the world according to Global Study. 21st about over 195 countries in the world. And then we also 9 out of 45 countries in Asia. Okay, next. You can getting older, but you have to get older. So what do you mean? Once you get older, hospital bill will be increased, decrease of high risk, insurance premium will be high. So goes to our road also. Maintenance costs will be increased, durability will be decreased, and also the driving comfort is low. Okay. Wow. Sorry about that. Okay. Aging infrastructure and the road impact will be increased compensation. Accident safety hazard, reducing speed limit, increase vehicle wear and tear, economic impacts, public transport delay, and infrequent repair and closure. And then these will be issues to all the concession. Nowadays we have very close windows to do a repair works, especially in the urban highway. Very close. And then until 1 to 5 o'clock in the morning, we can start the work for the maintenance. Okay, they are in our concession agreement. Here is the highway infrastructure lifespan. For the pavement, we have designed for the 10 years, but the sub-base will be 20 years. It will be the lifespan. This is a drainage system. We go to the 50 years return, flood return. And then also for the surface draining, we have to 10 years year return. For tunnel, we have to design about 100 years. And then so to the bridges also we go to the 100 years. And then we start the deterioration after 30 years we have to do some maintenance on this matter. Okay, the signages, this one seems for the first 5 years must be the last span. And then the road marking minimum is 1 year. And then also the upgrading and unnecessary area, this stated in the CA concession agreement, they have to do some renovation or upgrading every 7 years. So the next traffic control surveillance system, definitely this mechanism or electricity will be due by 10 years lifespan. So here is the current highway condition. Poor pavement condition, rusty brief railing, especially this road rectangular hollow section, still using in Malaysia. So now we have to change it. Interchange design and configuration, actually this interchange, especially in LDP or, sorry about say that, actually diamond interchange, we have a problem now. And then especially like Seremban, in design in 1980, you see very lots, they are backlog to until the main line visit. Okay, next. Okay, we have current highway condition about the rotten cable, 30 years, been used, still used. And then we have VMS unclear display panel. This one, the old version of VMS, and also the APS obsolete. Once it's obsolete, yeah, we know backup for the backup. You can see this refurbishment, refurbish and painting. I'm not saying this is which highway, but I know you can know where is it. But I think now they are already paint their RSA. So old genset, this very old, this one ordered from Manchester. And then this rusty corrugated metal pipe. This, yeah, you can see here, become the rusty MMB need to be aligned or realigned by concrete. Okay, this source from the EPI LM that mentioned by Datuk C before, expressway performance indicator. So this pavement, yeah, we have a rating. You can see here by 20, on the left is the far left is 2015, at the middle is 2020, and then this one 2030. So from here you can see still, yeah, there are good sector in the pavement for the rating. We have the roughness also looks back in 2015, but they do some renovation or repave. They will be weatherized, but long span for their pavement. And then so goes to 2023, we can see there are a little bit of poor and back sector over there. But the issues going bad on cracking, there will be issues on here. So we have, like Datuk Sri Rizjala mentioned about the issue PML. So maybe this part of the PML will be looking into. Okay, they also like this. For this one, for mechanical and electrical. So we have here, you can see TCS, toll collection system. They are the big, they are collecting, that were issues. And then also they are increasing from 2015 to 2020 and also 2023. Those increases. And then also we have the highway lighting system. We have a problem over here. You can see here about 3,700 for the increasing from 1098. So this part of mentioned by the Datuk Sri PNL, they may be this a part of a PNL we have having cost. Okay, accident, not sad to say, increasing from 2016. This one from our source, our system, MS Road, 2016, 2020, and then 2023. They are mentioned about the increasing every year. So, sad to say, on the blue color is a motor car, and the some sort like we call it orange there. They are motorcycle under 250 cc's. These are issues in highway we're having now. So now, action for the revitalize. Let's start what concession have to do. First, refurbish interchanges, bridges, overpass, and expansion of capacity. This item must be looked into. Okay, interchange, redesign, improving intersection, and improve the traffic flow. Refurbish, upgrading facilities, FA, cater the increased number of highway users, widening RSA, provide a comfort ambience. So we next go to the road safety enhancement. Okay, road safety announcement, guardrail barrier been used about 20 years ago, now without changing. So maybe now times to change. Lighting, signage and marking, and guideline. This is a guideline many. Yeah, we have to revise our existing spec and procedure. And then monitoring more CCTV and surveillance. Next, technological integration. So this, yeah, definitely ITS, MLF, smart infrastructure, and also the enforcement. They are going to do this like WIM, have been said by Datuk Sri before. Okay, we have also the atomical call checking and the monitoring system for the ET. You say when the people stranded on the highway, actually we have to scan or detect where the happen is. Sometimes our plus ronde or away, our ronde is away, so at least we do some automatic call checking and the monitoring system for the emergency telephone. And then we have artificial intelligence for maintenance. It will be touched by Dr. Ezrin for the AI after this. Okay, we go to environmental conservation. Okay, we have a noise reduction and a renewable energy. This will be the game changer now. Maybe about the solar, wind turbine to reduce consumption. And then now there's one method is what mentioned about the kinematic pavement. So meaning to say, once you working or walking or a vehicle drive to on it, will be generate the electricity. Okay, we have a green infrastructure and also evaluation. Malaysia Authority, we have some sort like MyGHI. There we are doing every 2 years to evaluate what the concession do about the environment and then about the green being applied. Okay, accessibility and connectivity. So here's a, intermodal connectivity. Yeah, we are saying before. Accessibility improvement, that's normal. But this alternative road, this become, I'm not sure whether this hall, all on the floor, realize or not. The new alternative road come from parking area. Let's say you are from the Jalan Tun Ismail. You can use KLCC parking area. You charge the parking and you come out at Jalan Tun Razak. So you can avoid the we call it the sum of congestion. Even also this TRX, also you can do that, but it's not gazetted in any as a road, private sector or whatever road. And then maybe HPU or LM, bagian perancangan, maybe we have to think about it. Okay. Okay, maintenance and longevity. Okay, maintenance and longevity, what the current state of the asset. Concession must know about this. What the current state of the assets, require sustainability level of service. We have also which asset critical and sustain the performance. And then we have the minimum life cycle cost, and then also the liabilities, my best long-term funding strategy. So FM must be applied. Okay, regular maintenance, longevity planning, these are normal practice we have to go to, and then the method of equipment, and also revise the guideline. Okay, innovation and material, these are we call it, these can be applied, but what costs money. And then committee stakeholder engagement, like mentioned by Dato' Sri and Dato' Sri KSU, just about the engagement of the Prime Minister or Minister, or also we have to go about this. Okay, last conclusion, cost need allocate to maintenance. So all the concession must be do this, and then method to do improvement, like that to see Idris Jalla mentioned. We have to go something away from what you practice now. Okay, last, this one mindset. So don't go to profit only, but think about our nation, and then how we can donate, and how we can improve our strategy to make good every time. And then lastly, require well-maintained program, this one. under the facilities management. So are you ready now? Concession company, are you ready now? Okay. Okay, my last slide. Can please. Tak ada suara ni. Yeah, this David, 90 years old, can finish a marathon 2023 last year. So even though we are our aging highway, but we still to survive, and then we have to revitalize. Okay, thank you. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Muhammad Syahrir Amin Ahmad, for the informative presentation. We would like to invite Yang Berusaha Puan Suryani binti Ali, Board Member Malaysia Highway Authority, to present a token of appreciation to the speaker. Please. Thank you so much, Puan Suryani binti Ali, for the token of appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the halfway point of today's agenda. Before we break for lunch, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our honoured guests for gracious joining us throughout this morning sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, after the break, kindly ensure you return to the Grand Ballroom by 2 p.m. sharp, so we can proceed as scheduled. Following that, we will continue with the next presentation. Thank you for cooperation. Para hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, kita sudah pun ke separuh agenda pada hari ini, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, dan sebelum kita berehat pada sekejap saja lagi, majlis juga mohon kerjasama tuan-tuan dan puan-puan untuk kembali ke Grand Ballroom tepat pada jam 2 petang supaya kita dapat meneruskan agenda seperti mana yang kita telah rancangkan, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, para hadirin sekalian. Dan untuk itu, majlis dengan sukacitanya menjemput dan mempersilakan para hadirin sekalian untuk menikmati jamuan tengah hari yang telah disediakan pada hari ini. With that, you are all invited to enjoy the lunch that has been prepared. Bon appetit. Thank you for your cooperation, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat menjamu selera.